Welcome back, everybody. Last week marked the halfway point of the fourth series of the ZRL Premier Division, but it's still all to play for as we head into round four. We're less than 10 minutes now away from the start of the women's race on what, of course, that many are saying is the hardest of all 6 rounds. It's on the Harrogate circuit, renowned for its brutally steep, incessant climbs, stunning Yorkshire scenery, and in an area which experiences 117 days of rain per year. But that won't affect the riders today, as it's sweat that will be dripping off them as they attempt to pick up as many points as possible for their respective teams from the comfort, or maybe the discomfort, of their own homes. From the comfort of the GCN sofa, it's a warm welcome back to Hannah Walker. Welcome, Hannah.
Hello, thank you. Welcome back to you as well.
Thank you very much. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it? 3, in fact. Lots of people are saying that today is going to be extremely hard, but given that we've had previous rounds with a fair amount of climbing, why are they saying that?
In this series, it's definitely one of the hardest, just less than double the amount of elevation climbed than last week, just over 800 metres this week. And I think it's with the those climbs, even the climbs that aren't even classified, Pot Bank, for instance, some of the parts of that climb, 20% gradient. There's plenty of option, there's plenty of time for those pure climbers to really split things up and do a lot of damage, and that's not even on the Queen of the Mountain or the King of the Mountain. Yeah, brutal, I think, is a word that we could be using quite a bit over the course of this evening, or this afternoon, or this morning, depending on where you are in the world. Right, let's now take a closer look at exactly what they will be dealing with today. 4 laps of the Tour of Tewit Well, 10.87 kilometres per lap and a total distance of 43.4 k's. It's the first time this circuit has been used for a ZRL event, and there really is no rest on it, with over 200 metres of climbing per lap. The first difficulty is the KOM reverse, 1.2 k's at 3.8%, which could see a few riders get caught out right at the very start of the race. A descent follows before they tackle Penny Pot Lane, 1.1 k's at just 2.4%. So that one's steep at the start, but easier after that. Then it's the Pot Bank climb, 760 metres at 7.7%, the hardest and steepest climb on the circuit, with a maximum gradient of close to 20% over the Oak Beck Stone Bridge. Finally, it's the Otley Road Kicker, 560 metres at 6.6%, but crucially, the finale is a descent followed by 300 metres of flat road before they get to the finish line. And my legs are hurting just talking about that route profile. The Anvil, Draft Boost and Feather power-ups are available to the competitors today, and I'm sure, given the parkour, a lot will be hoping for the Feather, or maybe the Anvil full of descents, which gives you an extra 50 kilograms of weight. Just remember, don't use that on a climb. Now those power-ups will be picked up, shall I say, each crossing of the finish line, and indeed at the KOM point around each of the 4 circuits. That comes around 2 kilometres in. Now, one of the teams that's been really animating the women's ZRL so far is Team 2024, and one of their key members today is likely to be the climbing sensation Kristen Korchinski. Hannah caught up with her earlier to get her thoughts on last week's race and indeed what's to come today.
Going usually into those sprints, I'm not going to beat people that are just a sprinter, so I really have to just not be there with them. And I was like, oh, this is great. I got maximum points. And unfortunately, I got a little scared because they just were like blowing past me at such high speeds, and I didn't want to lose the wheels. And instead of just giving it a few, like a little more power, I got scared and I pressed my power up, and so I got back. But Josh was like, I probably wouldn't have done that, and I was like, shh, oh no. I knew like when they were probably going to go, so I just kind of started to get my watts up and kind of be in those like red numbers, so that when someone went, I just tried to go as hard as I can too. And the momentum of the group kind of was going at such high speeds. And I finally learned now, like when you're at that finish, like you don't really look, you just kind of put your head down and you go. And so when I opened my eyes, I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. I got, I think, 5th. And I was obviously so thrilled for Shayna because, you know, she's amazing at sprinting. So
2024, you're in 4th position overall in the team standings. If my calculations are correct, around 3 points off the podium at the halfway mark.
Hopefully this week we can really, stack that finish. I reconned the course the other day, and I was like, ooh, this is very spiky and spicy. So, I mean, it literally is just like, for me, I feel like it's going to be very split up by the finish, because 4 laps of that, I mean, it's like high up, steep down, drag. It's going to be a fun show. Like, I was talking to someone about it, and she's like, it's just going to be broken up. There's just going to be single riders everywhere. And so we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to get there with the least amount of people to the finish. So that's my plan.
If there was ever a course made for Kristen Korchinski, this would be it, right?
I think so, because I sometimes, if I'm going extremely hard, like I just need a little bit of rest. So like that, the little bit of downhill, just to breathe for a second, like I'll be ready to go again. So I'm excited, but you know, who knows? Like, yeah, that's the beauty of racing. What happens on the day, how hydrated you are, rested, stressed, you know? So yeah, I'm looking forward to it though.
Kristen Korchinski there of Team 2024, and as Hannah pointed out, this course should really suit her, and we can see that looking at the power profile of her peak powers. So 1 minute maximum of just under 400 watts, and she only weighs 50 kilograms, so that'll be really suiting her on the short, steep and multiple climbs today. We also just looked up the fact that she's done 75,000 kilometres on Zwift over the last 3.5 years, which is absolutely incredible. You can see a few of the riders warming up just a few moments ago there on the screen behind me. Just a few minutes now until we get to see them all back in action, but just before that, let's bring you all up to speed on the current series standings. And it's very tight at the top, just 4 points separating the first 3 teams. Heino Racing Team are at the very top with 1 win and 2 second places, giving them a total of 58 points. 2 points behind them are the Aeonian Race Team, who came slightly unstuck on round 2. And then in third with 54 points, it's Canyon Esports. 2024 aren't too far adrift in 4th, but then there's quite a significant gap back to Beast Mode presented by Rose, who are currently in 5th place with 3 rounds remaining. So it is delicately poised at the very top, Hannah. Is now the point in the series where we'll see some teams maybe gambling in an effort to really move up the standings?
It certainly is for some of those teams who are a little further adrift, and almost it's like they've got nothing to lose. I think you've got to have that consistency, try and get some big points back on the board. But for those teams vying for the podium, it's all about which riders are you going to draft in for each week. You know, try and draft in as all your climbers for tonight, those who are strong for the team time trial next week. So it's going to be very, very close, and it's going to be hotly contested for that podium, definitely.
It will be. Well, let's take a very quick look at a couple of the key teams taking part today. First up, Aeonian Race Team. They've got this lineup. Loesch Adeges has been a prolific performer in the series so far and likely to be a protagonist again today. Lily Swan, the one change from last week, she replaces Sabrina Curtil. Canyon Esports have brought in Kristin Falk and Mary Wilkinson, who incidentally was second at the British Hill Climb Championships just yesterday on the Winnets Pass. And finally, the series leaders Heino Racing Team, who won the last 3 series, let's not forget. They have got exactly the same lineup as last week, which they won, which makes sense. They've got Hanson, Maurer, Lethbridge, Whitelaw and Neelan. So, just a few moments now until we can hand you over to live racing. Hannah, you will hear very shortly, but first up, it's the voice of Matt Stevens.
Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Very much looking forward to the race today. Of course, we are in Yorkshire, the scene of the 2019 World Championships. So there it is, the Tour of Tewit Well. By a long way, the hilliest of the circuits that we're going to face this season. 818 metres of elevation gain, as you can see there. 4 laps, totalling 43.5 kilometres. And a little bit of a reminder as well, they are the 3 power-ups that we're going to be seeing today. The Anvil, Draft and Feather Up. I can tell you what, as Dan alluded to on the sofa, if somebody gets the timing wrong in relation to dropping the Anvil, they could be in all sorts of problems on a course with hardly any flat. In fact, you're looking at the one of the few flat sections. There is the finishing line. It comes with about 300 metres to go. There's a final left-hand turn. And that is the beautiful site of Harrogate. And alongside me today, she's just getting herself ready, will, of course, be Hannah Walker to talk us through. The runners are in the pens. Only a few seconds to go before they actually roll out. In fact, they are underway. First looking at Alice Lethbridge of Team Heino. It is very, very tight at the top of the rankings. Canyon are there in 3rd, Aeonian in 2nd, Heino with in 1st place with 58 points. So I think this is the tightest we've ever seen. And right on cue, It's time to bring in Hannah Walker. Hannah, great to have you alongside me. We both love Yorkshire, IRL and in-game, but this is a special course. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, a very, very difficult course, and a course that me and you know very well.
We certainly do. A very, very difficult course, and one that could really be pivotal in the standings, in the series for these riders. And I think really key, because the first part and the first segment of climbing comes very, very shortly. It's making sure that all these riders have had a great warm-up coming into today's race, because if you haven't had that great preparation beforehand, it could all be over before it's really started to begin.
Yeah, we're on the climb now, in fact, so they've just gone past that red line there. This is the steepest section of this particular climb. There are, in fact, 3 significant climbs on this circuit. This is the only climb with any Queen of the Mountains points, and in fact, it's not the hardest. It's just a long drag, 1.2 Ks, averaging 3.8%. But as you said, it does come very, very early on, and Hannah, we know how important the sprint is, but I'm wondering how they're going to take this one, because if you get this one wrong and give a little bit too much, it can make the rest of the course very, very difficult indeed. And when we look at last week's race, we only had 25 riders left, but only half the elevation gain. Today, I think, could even be more attritional. So conservation of energy and racing tactically and smart is crucial.
It's crucial, but we could see a completely different dynamic. That riders, they know they need to save as much energy as they possibly can. They know how crucial the big points are at the finish line, with only the 5, 3, 2 and 1 points available at the intermediate, the Queen of the Mountain points. The big points are going to come at the finish line, so for teams, having as many riders as possible come the finish line is really crucial. So will some teams forego the Queen of the Mountain points, Matt?
Indeed. No, it's Kummer is on the front. Pia Kummer, the German rider from Beast Mode, powered by Rose, has decided to go clear. But look at this, Kristen Korchinski. She's already on the offensive. Last week, magnificent sprint for her. She ended up in 5th place, but took a lot of the sprint points as well. But Kummer has managed to go clear. She's taken a couple of seconds. In fact, it's Courtney Nelson, the American from Team Saris, who is in between. So this is an early move by Roddy. We haven't seen too much of, but a bold move to try and do something earlier on. And I do think that we will see teams splitting their resources today, Hannah, to try save riders for the big points at the end, and then other riders tasked with going early on. But Kummer looks as if she might just hold on to get maximum points across the top. 8 watts a kilo. She does take that one in front of Nelson. McIver there in 3rd place, I think, as well for Movistar. So we'll get confirmation of that. Kuczynski bridging across the gap. And already there's some big splits here. 4 or 5 seconds. There's confirmation. Kummer with 5. Nelson with 3 for Saris. And then coming across the line was MacGyver there for Movistar. So not a lot of points. And this is really crucial. The fact that the points distribution is very different will certainly mean that the teams are going to approach this in a different way. I don't think we'll see teams throw quite as much at these sprints. They'll be playing a longer game here.
They certainly need to, and just seeing how difficult that climb was, and the gaps that have started to open up as some riders just get themselves back on
the anvil.
A rider there. Look, you just saw Caroline Williams just dropping that anvil there to move up to the front. Gives you adds 50 kilograms to your overall weight, so perfect for the descent. You certainly don't want to get it wrong for an ascent, or sort of use it before the road starts to go upwards again.
Exactly. It's Caroline Williams on the front. She's in the super tuck and she's dropped the anvil, but just look at the way she's gapping everybody else. But this is I timed this earlier on. I think the anvil has now gone as the road's kicked up. So perfect timing. Oh, no, she's still got the anvil. The anvil is still in play. Oh, and this is on the lower slopes of this climb. Look, she's dropping like a stone. First illustration of getting the anvil wrong.
That was Mary Wilkinson. A huge shame for her. Scary Mary, a rider who is such a formidable climber. There's the team points on the night, and a rider that we know is in such good form as well. She was 2nd yesterday at the British Hill Climb Championships on Winnett's Pass, and as you say, Matt, getting the timing wrong there. Mary Wilkinson, she's going to use so much energy to get herself back into contention there.
You know, she was leading into the bottom of the climb there, and carrying that extra 50 kilograms is the last thing you want to do. She was literally dropping like a stone. As we head on to this long climb here, there is hardly a flat bit of road. It's a course I ride quite a lot. It's very, very attritional, up and down. but the steepest part of the climb comes halfway. They're going to get to the top in about 300 or 400 meters time. They swing a left, it's flat, then it just drops down, and then we have the very, very steep climb of Pot Bank with its 20% gradients. But already this field's starting to stretch out there, and there's several riders here that I know are going to want to try and really press on as much as they can to try and offer riders the least amount of opportunity to rest and recover, because there's some riders here that want this in a small group, and one in particular we know who wants it in a small group because she outwardly stated it, is Team at 2024's Kristen Korchinski. But look at that, we've already got a reduced peloton.
Yeah, the reduced peloton already down to 25 riders. We've already lost around 30 riders. Some big names as well. Naomi de Pennington of 2024 has lost touch. We also see that Angela Roberts from ATP Racing Venom no longer in that group. Vicky Naylan of Heino Racing Team, huge shot there. 26 seconds back from this group. So for Heino, already losing one rider at the moment.
Luce Adegeist as well, the winner of 2 rounds in the Aeonian race team, is also off the back of this group. She trails by 10 seconds as we look at the rider from Movistar. Steph Clutterbuck looking very, very comfortable. Just sat second or third wheel there at the front of this group, as you said, Hannah, of only 25 riders. But I'm just looking at the stats of the riders that are going backwards, and it really has split. Christine Falk is also out of the back for Canyon Esports. Now, Adegeist is on her own at 11 seconds. She needs to get on now if she can, but we're coming up to this brutally steep climb of Pot Bank in a few moments. They do carry a little bit of momentum, but it's almost like a wall. It's very, very steep indeed. In fact, one of the steepest gradients that we will actually get in any of the Zwift racing this season. And then there's no real descent. It drags over the top, doesn't it?
It's one of those climbs that's just really uncomfortable. You can't really get into a rhythm with the steep gradients of up to 20%. It's all about your positioning, your gear selection as well, how you're feeling, how much work you've done before getting to that point, how much into the red or how high is your heart rate at that point. For those riders who might have just chased back on to close the gap, they've put out a considerable effort. So by the time you get to this steep climb, this hard climb of Pot Bank, you're already right into your stores.
We're just onto that climb now. They carry a little bit of momentum, as I said, just into the bottom of the climb. A couple of featherweight power-ups. That's exactly the climb that the power-up, should I say, you want. Several were featherweight power-ups being used. And look at the empty tarmac behind. This is where the slope really starts to kick up. 7-9%. It kicks up again in a moment. There we go. 11 and 12. Top right of your screen. You can just see the stats there as we look at the picture of Paige Peters here. Look at the watts per kilo there. 6.7 watts a kilogram. I'm not too sure if that was a smile or a grimace. I think it was the latter. Out of the saddle. 14%. And a few more riders also losing contact on here. I cannot believe, Hannah, that we've already got only 25 riders left in contention. Adegeist now, winner of 2 rounds, 23 seconds out of the back.
This is incredible. Only 5.9 kilometers covered, and there, perfect shot. Just take a look. On this climb, riders are scattered all over this part of the climb, and still a large group is behind that. So, like Kristen Korchinski said in her interview, this is going to be scattered. Single riders scattered all over the course, and it is the rider Beth McIver of the Movistar E-Team up towards the front with Kristen Korchinski and Courtney Nelson of Team Saris, who are really starting to do the damage. They're putting the pressure here, 22 kilometers per hour at the front of this group.
Well, this is horrible, this particular stretch of road. As you can see, it's still dragging up. Top right of your screen gives you the percentage, 2%, 3%. So no real opportunity to recover properly after the brutally steep slopes. Few riders now getting back in contact, and they need to do that as quickly as they can. But we're now down to only 18 riders in this front group. Elisa Hag of Beast Mode has been tailed off. Anna Svardstrom of Team Swedish Swifters, Lily Swan of the Aeonian are the few casualties over the top of that climb. Beth McIver looking very good, ever so smooth, so stylish as well. She looks very, very composed, but only 6.5 kilometers done. And Korchinski decides to try and move clear. But she's been flanked very, very quickly and closed down by Melanie Mora. And there's that group just behind as they round that corner. And this particular section of road is best described as a roller coaster. Now, they're dropping for the vast majority, but there are some really long, nasty drags on this section, but it's arrow straight, isn't it?
It is, and this is one of the few points where you sort of sit in the wheels, begin to recover ever so slightly before the next hard point on the course. And for you just saw there, Vicky Whitelaw of Heino Racing just getting herself back into contention in this front group. The rider just moved up into the centre of this group. The British rider, and here's Elisa Haag of Beast Mode Powered by Rose, the German rider, just sitting nicely in this group, and just taking a look at how many riders that Beast Mode Powered by Rose have in this front group. They have Julia Shallow, who was ever prominent, wasn't she, in last week's race. She was a formidable climber. She was one of those riders who was almost on par with Kristen Korchinski, wasn't she, Matt?
She was indeed, and she was 7th in last week's race as well. So she was the best performer of Beast Mode Powered by Rose, but we're just getting some stats through. There are only 19 riders, as you say. The riders sitting at the back, which she does this so well, is Daniela Estrati, just sat at the back of that group, almost like the devil take the hindmost, like the elimination race. She's able to just move around those riders at the back, and sitting where she is, just towards the back of this group, is the best place to get the maximum drag effect as well. Just sitting towards the back of this small group, she really knows how to finesse, how to ride, and importantly, how to expend the least amount of energy possible on a course like this. We can see 3 Aeonian in this group. We can see 3 riders from Canyon, also 4 from Heino. So Heino really back on form. But as we head towards the end of lap number 1, we've got about 1,500 metres to go before we actually hit the finish line, and then it's 3 laps to go. But I did not expect this field to be so split up. The next group on the road, 25 seconds behind, Hannah.
Lily Swan, Lisa Hermansson and Anna Svardstrom, 2 riders there from Team Swedish Swifters, and Lily Swan of the Aeonian race team, trying to get themselves across. They haven't given up yet, Matt. They're still pursuing this chase. If they can try and limit their losses, as we know, there are points available for the first 30 riders across the line come the finish line. So it's so important to make sure that these 3 can try and hold off any of the further chasers from behind, if they can try and manage this gap. And who knows, if we see a lull of action in the front group, if they can take back another 10-15 seconds, inject a bit of that motivation and acceleration into the chasing group, it's really not all over. It's a big ask, but we know it's not all over until we to get to that finish line. Lily Swan doing the bulk of the work here at the front, Matt.
They are indeed, but the gap has gone out now to 34 seconds, so in very short order they're actually dropping away. So I think you had a very good case, because we have seen groups behind 10 or 15 seconds actually bridge across when there's a lull in front, but this front group has got a lot of momentum and they're actually moving a lot quicker. They're over the top of that really nasty drag that our second group are on, and they're dropping back 44 seconds it is now for the group with Lily Swan in it. So I do think, without wanting to be too negative, that they are not going to get back on, because we're nearly at a minute, 49 seconds and counting. So this front group, this elite group out in front of 19 riders, I do think we're going to see the winner from one of the riders in this front group. But I did not think we would see such an attritional race so far. I knew this was going to be a hard course. We know the Harrogate course, whatever permutation of the Harrogate course you use, it's hard. It's always up and down, but I didn't think we'd see so many riders out the back so early.
This front group upward of 62 kilometers per hour at the moment, as they hammer towards this kite to the 1 kilometer kite until they get to that finish line. So there's, as you say, so much momentum and force within this front group at the moment. Korchinski, she's never far away from the front though, is she? She's always in the top 5. She's just moving herself around, making sure that she's covering every move, following the riders, the danger riders to watch. And for 2024, when we look at the overall series points, having only 2 riders in this front group with Paige Peters and Kristen Korchinski, it's so important that they make sure that they remain in this position, and if possible, try and shed some of the numbers that are in there in terms of how many riders Heino have got in this front group, Aeonian as well, Movistar. Of course, they didn't compete last week, Matt, so they have moved down further down in those standings.
Yeah, but they're certainly making amends today with 3 riders, Clutterbuck, McIver and Story. We're just heading towards the end of our opening lap here. The course, it is Tewit Well. 3 very, very difficult laps still to go as we look at the real face of concentration of Becky's Story there from the Isle of Man. There it is, 1 lap down. And if you have just joined us, this is round 4 of the ZRL, the Zwift Racing League, and we are in Yorkshire, and we have 4 laps of 10.87 kilometres, giving a total distance of 43.38 k's today, but with a very, very lofty total of 818 metres of elevation and hardly a flat bit of road. As they just go past the bars on the left-hand side, as the road drops down and they swing left, we'll just see the Zwift house, which we had there as well. And there's just a reminder of the team points: 6 for Beast Mode, 3 for Saris, and 2 for Movistar. But importantly, not quite as many points out on the road today for the Queen of the Mountains. The big focus, I think, is going to be on the finish. So I think we're going to see a very, very tactical race, but I do not see anybody getting across the gap. And just a quick reminder, Hannah, as we head to the bottom of the climb again, the gap to the next group on the road, 1 minute and 4 seconds, as we take our first look, picture-in-picture of Julia Shallow.
Yeah, the gap only continuing to grow, and Shallow just showing you how difficult the lower slopes of this climb are. This classified Queen of the Mountain, the 6 points are available come the top, and Beast Mode Power by Rose top the standings at the moment with the 6 points in the intermediates as we currently see it. 2 riders from Beast Mode Power by Rose in this group, and just take a look at how hard this climb is. 189 beats per minute for Shallow.
She's got 25 ride-ons as well, so if you are watching and you do have your Zwift companion app to hand, please fire it up and please make sure you give these riders as much virtual encouragement as you can. Give them a ride-on. 12 there for Melanie Mora of Team Heino, and they've got 4 riders in this front group. They are looking very, very good indeed. Cecilia Hansen, Maura herself, who was 10th last week. Alice Lethbridge is there, and Vicky Whitelaw. So Heino looking very, very good. But just as we head towards the second part of this climb, we've got around a kilometre to the top. Did you think that we'd see such an evenly balanced season in terms of the points? Heino leading with 58, Aeonian with 56 in second, and Cannon there with 54. This is still wide open, and things could change tonight massively.
It only takes one evening for a team to have an off night, shall we say, and score quite low in the series in the points for that evening, and the series overall could be put completely out the window. Or for another team who keep that consistency, it could be that they can take the series. So it's not all over, as me and Dan were talking about on the sofa before. Depending on which team sort of draft riders in for those races which have a lot of elevation for next week's team time trial, it's so closely matched that, as you say, it's something that we've not seen before. And the dynamic of how the racing has unfolded has been so great to see. It's not all gone one team's way, that's for sure.
Well, this is the sprint. Courtney Nelson just about to be overtaken, I think, by Beth McIver of Movistar. A flurry of power-ups being used there, but some riders have also just got tailed off. McIver takes the maximum points there with 5. Shallow in second. Silly Hansen in third there with 2 points. And rounding out our 4 riders scoring points on the reverse Yorkshire Queen of the Mountains, Kristen Korchinski. Beth McIver just dropping back. This is the only real section of road to use the anvil. I don't think there's any other real climbs, or descents, should I say, that provide the right opportunity. We're going to have a look, I believe, at an action replay of that as we look at the side-on shot of Beth McIver in this little clutch of 6 riders that have just moved clear. They've got a slender advantage of 3 seconds over the rest behind as they continue to descend towards the Stone Bridge before they kick up Oak Beck. And there was the sprint. McIver coming round, not using a power-up, just showing how strong she really, really was. Nelson, the only rider up front there for Team Saris. 8th last week, looking good today. And McIver now on the front. Now this is the place, if you have dropped an anvil, which I can't quite see, you want it to end round about now. Rather than do a Mary Wilkinson so before. But there, Beast Mode Power by Road lead with 9 points. Movistar in second with 7. Saris Heino 2024 there with a solitary point. Well, let's have a look at the composition of this group out in front. We've got a couple of riders that were tailed off. Elisa Hag has actually been tailed off now. She's 5 seconds adrift, lost her place on that last little sprint, and was straight away we're back onto this climb. So that descent was the only real opportunity to get a significant amount of recovery. As Hannah, we look at the drag for the first time.
Yeah, it's one of the few places where you can regain some of your energy, and as you say, taking a look at that drag for the two riders at Heino in that prime position at the moment, along with one of the riders from the Movistar E-team. That is Becky Story, the rider from the Isle of Man, just sitting in the prime position as things start to bulk together a little bit. And again, we've lost a couple more riders from that effort. Up to the Queen of the Mountain, Steph Clutterbuck. Vicky Whitelaw is trying and clawing her way to get back into contention with this front group. Elisa Hag from Beast Mode Power by Rose. So every lap and every time we see the ascent, we're starting to see one or two riders start to be tailed off, and with still 2 laps remaining, or 2.5 laps remaining of today's race, this is going to be so attritional, so difficult to remain in contention.
Well, Caroline Williams, clearly a very, very popular figure indeed. Look at that, 68 ride-ons there for the British rider from Canyon Esports. Opened up a small lead. Really happy to keep pressing on here. She knows the damage that's being caused. There'll be that constant communication between the team in relation to the composition of this front group. And Canyon looking to try and move up. They sit, as a reminder, in 3rd place on the rankings so far with 54 points, 2 points behind Aeonian and 4 points behind Team Heino. So as we said before, very, very delicately poised halfway through the season. Next week, we have the first and the only team time trial of this season, ZRL. And then we have the final over on the brand new island of Murakami Island. This is Daniela Estrate. She's again sitting just at the back of this group. She really, out of all of the riders, every single week that I've been watching this, commentating on it, Estrate almost rides the perfect race. Yes, she hasn't won yet, but in terms of optimization, saving energy, she just knows what to do. She plays such a cool game, doesn't she?
It's really a beautiful thing to watch, if you can say that. She's got a real knack, hasn't she, to be able to be in that sweet spot, to be, every time there is an acceleration, she's never on the wrong side of it, and I don't want to give her the curse of the commentator, but as soon as some riders begin to be tailed off, she's able to just make that slight acceleration. She goes around them, and she just remains in that perfect place. For Estrate, she really has really got it nailed on, and a rider who can save as much energy as possible. Like you say, yeah, okay, she might not have won an individual round, but she is key to the success of Aeonian in picking up the points, in scoring highly come the finish line. And when you see their results overall in the team standings during this season, and you compare it to previous seasons, Aeonian gone from strength to strength. It's fantastic to see.
It certainly is, and if you just look on the wall there, you can see them quite clearly. There are some race notes, we believe, as well. So the key points on the course there. I mean, these riders will have ridden this course on many, many occasions. All 3 Aeonian riders just at the back as we come towards, this is only the 2nd time up Pop Bank. So 3 more ascents of this brutal, brutal climb. Will we see a few more riders chipped off the back here? It's Peters on the front from 2024. 2 riders only from 2024 in this front group. It is the 2 Americans, Peters and Kristen Korchinski. But the riders now moving to the front is Shallout. But she's been overtaken by the 2 riders from Heino now moving to the front. A couple of featherweight power-ups being dropped. Remember, they make you 10% lighter for 15 seconds. So this is the point in the course where you're going to get the most benefit. Top right of your screen again, 13% gradient. This really does kick up. This is a brutal, if short, climb, but then it doesn't flatten out, as we said before. You've got the stone walls on the left-hand side, and the road just keeps on rising. It's a really, really cruel part of this course. But so far, this group is still staying together. Becky Story, in fact, is the rider struggling at the back. Estrate still hanging on, but Vicky Whitelaw, surprisingly, is now 7 seconds back. Another casualty of the brutal slopes as we look at the stats of Cecilia Hansen of Sweden, riding for Team Heino. 5.7 watts a kilo on this climb. No attacking here, but just trying to hold on the wheels. A couple of band drafts being used, which increase the draft of the riders in front of you by 50% to 30 seconds. And quite often you'll see riders using that as a defense mechanism, really, not to attack, not to gain a tactical advantage, but more to save energy.
You certainly do, and it's, you know, we see that the anvil is a key use on a descent, whereas with the draft van, as you say, just key to just giving you that moment of respite, just to gain back some energy, just to have a breather, take a sip of your drink out of the bottle, just to refresh yourself just a little bit, and perhaps you want to get a new power up through one of the arches, the finish line, or the Queen of the Mountain Arch. So using the draft, sort of getting rid of it, but in a good way, to your advantage, in a positive way.
We're just going over the top of this flight now, just looking at the stats of Courtney Nelson, sat in about second or third wheel there, the only rider in at the front group for Saris, but a couple more riders have been dropped on those brutally steep slopes. Elisa Haag of Beast Mode has been dropped. Steph Clutterbuck of Movistar also out the back of this elite group out in front now, and Vicky Whitelaw has been shelled from the front, leaving 3 riders from Heino. So Heino still, well, they don't have the numerical superiority, they share that with Heino and Canyon. So Canyon with 3 in there, Caroline Williams, Mary Wilkinson and Stephanie Sidlick. 2 riders from Movistar in the form of Beth McIver and Becky Story. 1 rider from Team Swedish Zwift is still in there, and that's Marlene Bjerhead. And then 3 from Heino, Hansen, Mora and Whitelaw. As again, we're looking at Nelson. And let's have a look at the key riders. Actually, Daniela Istrate has been dropped from this group. Now, that's a big, big surprise. We're just talking about how well she judges it, but clearly Hannah could not hold on to the ferocious tempo being set on that steep, steep climb.
Alongside the steep gradients, it's really it's shelled a few riders. Marlene Bjerhead, Becky Story, Paige Peters have all suffered from those extremely steep gradients, and as we said before, it's not even a classified climb, but the climb where it's doing a lot of the damage. It's the climb where riders are finding it so difficult just to hang on, and there's been no real attack. It's just been keeping that high average power that has been doing the damage to these riders, just unable to match the power of Kristen Korchinski, Shallow, who have been up towards the front, Hansen as well, as we see Monali Keller in her pain cave. The Canadian rider from Aeonian, who is still in here, you see there, just highlighted in this very reduced peloton, if we can almost call it that. 12 riders remain at the moment in this front group.
Yep, I think we're just saying, yeah, we've got to 15 in fact. I think Bjerhead is the rider from Team Swedish Zwift, is just off the back. Whitelaw dropped from Heino, Istrate, Clutterbuck. So Whitelaw and Daniel Istrate are desperately chasing behind. They're at 36 seconds. The next group on the road is 2 rider group, Clutterbuck and Elisa Haag at 46 seconds. And then, well, a very, very big back to Vicky Nealon, but still in 20th place at 1 minute and 44 seconds. So there are several races going on. We can't ignore the other riders because we might not necessarily be able to tell, Hannah, the outcome of the race just by this front group, because so many points are on offer. Just a reminder for you, it's the top 30 riders that score points, but with so many points back down the road, we don't exactly know what the result's going to be just by who's in the front here, which is quite fascinating. It makes it so important for the riders to keep on riding behind.
This is where that communication between the rider and the sports director, the team manager, really comes into its own, to make sure that you're still giving that knowledge. You know, the race isn't all over. You're still a vital part of the team, even though you're not within the front struggle of riders. Make sure that you keep pressing on, because we want to try and score as many points, and that could be the key turnaround here, that for a team, if you can try and score as highly as possible, although you're sort of off the back, it could be a key vital moment.
That certainly could. Let's have a look at Stephanie Sidlick there of America, riding for Canyon. One of 3 riders, sorry, 2 riders now in the front for Canyon. They've had a good day so far, and they're certainly going to like this. But the way on an anvil's been dropped there, that's an interesting one. But this is a downhill stretch. You can just see minus 5% gradient, and this one goes on for a little while, coming in towards the finish. It won't be very long before we reach the halfway point in this race, but a select group of riders in front now. Lethbridge of Heino. Paige Peters of 2024 also at the front. And there's that continuation there. And Bjarhed is the rider dropping the anvil as we get a good look. She's mopping her brow there, pops her specs back on. But a fantastic combination of the anvil, the super tuck, and I'm going to say it again, the best haircut, I think, in the women's IRL peloton. Sorry, fictitious peloton, should I say. Just going through the kilometre to go board. There is the Flamme Rouge, but Bjarhed continuing to save that bit of energy. And a few moments ago, we saw how hard she had to work, Hannah, just to stay in that group. So real welcome break for her just then.
It certainly was. 8 seconds was the gap that she had to close, and so she was really due a moment of 30 seconds just to rest and recover and sort of recover from the effort that she'd made to get back into contention. Using the anvil there, as you say, it's perfect. It's not one of the steepest descents on the course, but next time through the finish line, she'll get a new power up. So she'll be hoping for the lightweight feather that she can use it on the Queen of the Mountain, and then she can go through the top of there and pick up another power up. So for Bjarhed, really smart thinking there for the rider from Team Swedish Swifters.
Yeah, it certainly was. Well, there is the finishing gantry coming round. There we go, 200 metres to go. So it's around a 300-metre sprint from that left-hander, and they will be carrying a lot of pace into there. And this is one of the only definitively flat parts of the circuit. There you go, top right of your screen again, 0%, indicating it's totally flat, and we are just going through the finish line again. Another opportunity for these riders to get a power-up. Power-ups are generated randomly. They get the anvil, the draft, or the feather at 2 points on the course. The first being the finishing line there, and then the second one being at the Queen of the Mountains, which will come in only a couple of kilometres time. Very, very early on in the lap does that climb come. But don't be fooled, because that climb is by no means the hardest climb on this circuit. I think that award, that notorious award, goes to Potbank with its 15 and 20% gradients, as we look at Ariel Verhaeren. Already had a second place this season, looking good. And this might get pretty tactical here as well. There are a lot of riders not wanting to do too much, but a few riders want to try and split this. And I'm wondering how many we're going to lose on this lap, Hannah. Any bets?
Well, one or two, aren't we? That's for certain. And I think the one or two are going to claw themselves and get themselves back into the group. But it's those micro efforts that these riders have to keep making continuously. Sort of who's got the most left come the end of the race, and these short, sharp spikes of gradient as you start the bottom of the climb. Just then that you saw the red numbers coming into effect of 13, 14, 15%. Those short, sharp gradients, those increments really do the damage, don't they? And along with a rider who has a very high VO2 max, that's kind of what we're sort of looking at, isn't it? A rider who has a good VO2 max for that 1 minute, 2 minute, that 1 minute, 2 minute effort, sorry.
That was really interesting. That was a wonderful interview with Kristen Korchinski, who of course is in this front group, about her ability. I mean, the pure definition of fitness in its simplest term is the ability to recover from repeated efforts. And it was a real insightful interview or chat that you had with Kristen. The fact that she said she only needs a little bit of recovery and she goes again, and that's perfectly illustrated in her style of riding. It's hammer blow after hammer blow, and there's only so much that the other riders can cope with, and that is one of the reasons we are seeing a reduced group here. Although saying that, she hasn't committed too much so far. She hasn't been riding on the front quite as much, perhaps saving something for the back end. As we head towards the top of the climb, there's the 7% gradient, and we're looking at the Heino Racing team. They have 3 riders in this front group: Celia Hansen, Melanie Mora and Alice Lethbridge. And the only other team in the race with also 3 riders in the front, Canyon Esports. And they are the team that sit in 3rd place. So it is Canyon essentially from a points perspective versus Heino Racing, but a lot will depend, as we said earlier on what is happening behind, because we only have 15 riders in this front group, and then there's another 15 riders to score points further down the road, up to 2 minutes behind now, as we head towards this little right-hander. The road continues to rise just for a couple of meters, and then we will go through the Queen of the Mountains arch, and nobody wanted to commit just yet. Saying that though, look at the numbers there, 6.7 watts a kilo. I do apologise, the riders are certainly giving it full beans on towards the top of this climb. Couple of van drafts being used there as well, just to gain that little bit of benefit from sitting on the wheel. And also big acceleration here by McIver, Beth McIver, but just coming past her, looks like this could be Hansen. Oh, that's a very, very close one. I wouldn't want to call that a photo finish between McIver and Hansen as they go across the line. Blue v red, and who got the call? In fact, it was Celia Hansen there. 5 points to her, McIver with 3. Shalal there with 3rd and 2 points, and Kristen Korchinski ever present with 1 point as we head back onto the descent. And who's next to drop the anvil? And I think it's Korchinski here, Hannah.
Yeah, it certainly is. Korchinski right on cue after we were just speaking about her, saying that she was keeping her powder dry. She'd had a lap where she didn't really show her face up towards the front. She, as you said, very different way of racing to what we saw last week, where she was making multiple attacks every single lap. And I think here, Korchinski, she knows she's the strongest rider in the group. It's about using her efforts wisely and where she can really do the damage. And you see... several riders dropping that anvil power up, just trying to take a little bit of respite over the top here. And again, this group, 11 riders. We've lost one more rider from this group. Mona Lee Keller of the Aeonian race team is no longer with us, so another casualty. So every time we see these short, sharp ascents, we see a rider unable to keep with the pace, another rider dejected from the group. And there is the overall team points on the night so far. Beast Mode powered by Rose having a real standout evening, leading the way with 11 points. Movistar E-Team with the 10. Heino Racing with 7 points. Team Saris with the 3. And 2024, courtesy of Kristen Korchinski's 2 sole points in the last 2 intermediates, in the last 2 Queen of the Mountains, there with the 2 points.
Well, you're right there, Hannah. I mean, when you consider that Beast Mode Powered by Road only have 1 sole rider in that front group, all of those points have been taken by Julia Shallow because she is the solitary representative from that squad. But I tell you what, more news in, hot off the press. And there's only 11 riders in this front group because we lost 3 or 4 riders last time up that climb. The last rider in the group is Mary Wilkinson, but we've lost Paige Peters, who is now at 22 seconds. Becky Story of Movistar at 23. And also team Swedish Zwifters, Marlene Bjarhed, they are dropping away very, very quickly indeed. So Hannah, only 11 riders in this front group, but still 3 there from the team in red, Heino. You can just see they've got number 1, 2 and 3, Hansen, Mora and Lethbridge. It's ominous, isn't it, in relation to mopping up the podium again. But 3 riders still in there from Canyon as well, Sidlick Wilkinson and Caroline Williams. So this is absolutely fascinating as we get towards, we're deep now into the second half of this race. Are we going to see a rider go long? Because you'd think that there's definitely opportunity to try and go long because we've got such a small group. And there's a couple of very, very fast finishes in this group, especially riders like Hansen, Beth McIver as well. So a couple of riders I think might be wanting to try and go long. And one in particular who I think might try something like that could be Kristen Korchinski.
She certainly will, but there's going to be different objectives within this group. For me, Canyon Esports, they want to try and keep this together for as long as they possibly can because they have an opportunity to leapfrog Aeonian in the overall team standings. There's 3 points adrift at the moment. If they can try and score highly at the moment with the 3 riders, Aeonian only have the 1 rider in this leading group. They could cement themselves into second, and if they can score highly enough in the points for the top 30, if they have any of the riders just slightly tailed off the back a couple of minutes back, could they even win the team on the evening and try and claw back points on the team of Heino?
Yep, it certainly is very, very interesting indeed. And look at the way they're spread across the road. We've got that drag behind, but because the group is so small, nobody's getting the benefit because they're spread out so much. Obviously, there's clearly a benefit just sat behind. We've got all that draft benefit going wanting. And there it is. Great shot there of the way that aerodynamics and the way that draft works in game. Obviously, it gets a little bit longer when they pick up the speed. It shortens on the climbs, as you would expect. That's what happens in real life. So this really does mirror real world environment. And Lethbridge just rotating through. Shallow moves to the front as well. 11 riders here. And if you have just joined us, this is one of the most attritional races. Well, without a shadow of a doubt, let's call it the most attritional race we have seen so far in the ZRL. This is round 4. We're in Yorkshire. It is the Tour of Tewit Well. A Bit of a history lesson for you here, Hannah, and everybody else. Now, Tewit Well is a well. It's a spring that was discovered way back in 1596, and it's named after the local word for peewit or lapwing, which was a local bird. There we go.
Wow, there we go. Love it. Keep the facts coming, Matt.
I'll try and keep those little golden nuggets coming, but I tell you what's coming up rather rapidly. It's another climb of Pot Bank. There it is, 15% on this first hairpin, or the main hairpin on this climb. There's the drag, which is reduced dramatically on this climb because of the pace that they're riding up, the speed that they're riding up, and a couple of riders in a little bit of difficulty. Mary Wilkinson on the back of that group now. Lethbridge as well from Heino just towards the back. Wilkinson maybe suffering after her efforts in the British Hill Climb Championships, where she finished second on the climb of Winnett's Pass. Surprising to see her there, but I think she might get back on. She's just losing that draft, so it is Wilkinson starting to struggle on the climb. And it's Beth McKeever who's forcing the pace over the top.
McKeever having a real standout ride. Wilkinson just got herself back into to contention, but at the same time, her teammate, the American rider Stephanie Sidlick, started to lose a few seconds on that climb. And I've noticed a couple of times when we've always got to that real steep ramp, there's been 3 or 4 riders who've always struggled with that initial pace. Cecilia Hansen, Mary Wilkinson, Sidlick, and Verhaeren of the Aeonian race team, and they've clawed the way back on, but it's that initial steep gradient of 15, 16, 17% where it's really done the damage. It's almost that panic, isn't it, to try and keep yourself in a relaxed manner, not to overthink things, just keep in your own pace, your own rhythm, and try and get back. And there you see in the background Stephanie Sidlick just trying to get herself back on. Meanwhile, Korchinski pressing on at the front, 5.4 watts per kilo.
Well, she is a very, very popular figure. And you look at that, 100, I think the only rider today to go into triple digits on the ride on front, and she does make it look so easy. But look at that, Korchinski on the front, drops low in the bars as the gradient starts to lessen a little bit. This is a little bit of an opportunity to get a respite, but Korchinski has just drawn herself off the front group. There's only 10 riders out in front because it is Stephanie Sidlick who's now 11 seconds adrift, Hannah. She has, it's a do or die effort now. But I do think because she was put on the ropes, I think it is going to be very, very difficult for her to get back in contact. And as a result, we only have, coming into 1 1/3 laps to go, 10 riders out in front, including Kristen Korchinski, who is the only representative of 2024. But remember, there are 20 riders further down the road who are in a position to score points as well. So there are several races for the price of one today. There's another ride-on is added to Kristen Korchinski, and if you have just joined us, please do fire up your Zwift Companions app and your Zwift Companion app, should I say. Please get involved in the comments underneath this video as well. We do like to hear what you've got to say, and this is a fascinating race as they spread across the road, just easing off the pace just a little bit. You can see Korchinski getting low there. She's on the phone there, clearly, Hannah. That's a great insight, again, into the communication that goes on. We know that riders actually talk to each other using Discord, but also they'll communicate when they can as well.
It's important for a rider to let their teammates, to let their team manager, sports director know how they're feeling, perhaps sort of ask for advice. Well, I've tried to make an effort over the top of that climb. I did open up a slight gap, but it didn't quite split the group, and I didn't quite gain as much time as I might have hoped. It's also about having that chat, and we see what an effort there from Alice Lethbridge, a huge attack there from the rider from Heino in the red jersey.
That was a very, very big attack, perhaps because Stephanie Sidlick was actually getting back in contact. She's only 6 seconds behind now, so she has closed the gap. And obviously that will up the points if she were to get back in that group. But Hansen has taken the opportunity to go clear. Let's have a look at the stats there. Beautiful pedaling style in between 90 and 100 RPM. But look at how still her body is as well, generating a lot of power. She's gained a lot of momentum, just knew where to open up that gap as well. Looking very, very strong, and now has a 2.5 second lead and happy to go long here, Hannah.
Yeah, taking that opportunity, she's sensing the danger that, as you say, Sidlick was about to get back on. Canyon Esports were about to gain one more rider to be sort of on evens with Heino and Hansen. She just sensed that there was that lull, that she had what it takes. She had something left in the tank, and take the opportunity. Why not? You never know. You have to try these things go long, and perhaps if there was a stall, a lull in the group behind that no one wanted to chase, it would provide Hansen with such a large gap. As it turns out, there is a chase from behind. Lethbridge is just currently up towards the front. Korchinski, Makiva of Movistar doing the work to try and bridge across. Here we see that light blue figure just joining across to the Swedish rider of Hansen.
Good bit of riding there by Makiva, straight on the wheel. She knows how dangerous Celia Hansen is. She's one of the most decorated riders on this platform, riding in the ZRL, but she has been caught. But what a battle behind now. Stephanie Sidlick back down to 15 seconds. She did shut to just under 6 seconds, 5.9 seconds. That was a brave pursuit, but clearly the message came from Canyon HQ, as it were, to press on at it, not from Canyon HQ, sorry, from Heino, to press on in front to keep that numerical superiority out in front for Heino. So I don't think Sidlick now is going to get on. She's 17 seconds adrift, and then it's a further 50 seconds to the next group with Paige Peters and Becky Story. Monali Keller have joined forces with Mjalin Bjarhed as well. That's the next group on the road. Then further behind that, we have a group with Vicky Whitelaw, Elisa Hagen, Angela Roberts at 2 minutes and 11 seconds. And then the rest of the field are spread out over this very difficult course. But we are coming in now with 1 lap to go. Won't be long before they swing left, see the finishing banner for the penultimate time, as we get our first glimpse again of Beth Makiva just banging down a gel there, making sure she's hydrated and fueled, Hannah.
It certainly is so important. Make sure that you do it early enough for the energy gel to really kick in before you get to that finish. And I think that just shows and gives you an indication of just how difficult tonight's race has been. Makiva has been in the thick of it. She's been scoring points in the Queen of the Mountains and the sole rider from the Movistar team in this group. She wants to make sure that she can score highly. As I say, her positioning isn't going to do anything to the overall team standings as it is at the moment. They moved down the standings after missing last week, but for Makiva, it's so important. Try and keep within this group. She's usually known, isn't she, Matt, as a pure out-and-out sprinter normally. So for her to be in such an attritional group of riders, really great standout rider from Beth.
Oh, definitely. Well, she's at the back of that group there. She's clearly happy to bring things out. She's clearly feeling very good. You don't go on the offensive like that unless you're feeling good. Sometimes when you've got really good legs, it's hard to hold back. You really need that control, and that's what the best riders have. It's not just about the ability to deliver power at certain frequencies over certain lengths of time. It's the ability to have control, be calm, composed, and hold back, and use those that power really tactically shrewd, in a shrewd way. 11.2 Ks to go now. This is the penultimate time they'll see the banner. Next time through will be the finishing line. The ending lap 3 of 4, 48 minutes and 20 seconds and counting of racing to go. We've got about 13 or 14 minutes for the final lap. In fact, the fastest lap ever done on this circuit in the ZRL was by Courtney Nelson of Saris, 14 minutes and 52 seconds, averaging 218 watts for an average speed of 43.8 kilometers an hour. But we are now into the final lap, and 10 riders are out in front. And still, Stephanie Sidlick from Canyon Esports, she shut the gap again, back down to 17 seconds. She is not giving up.
I tell you what, if we have another lull within this group, and if she keeps on at the rate that she's going, if you can try and claw even half of that gap, once you have that motivation, that carrot in front of you, yeah, it's for Sidlick taking another 2 seconds out of that gap, so down to 15, just less than 16 seconds at the moment for Sidlick. So what a mighty effort from the rider from Canyon Esports, as the riders, they take that swooping left and then right-hander. Will begin the final ascent of the Queen of the Mountain very shortly, and the gradient will ramp up.
It certainly will. It's really steep at the bottom here. There is the line. 14%, only for 100 meters or so before the road starts to ease. And this climb itself, although it is categorised, there are points on offer. And what you are watching is a scratch race, but with points. Lots of points on the finishing line. In fact, 50 points for the winner all the way down to 30th place. And then there are intermediate points on the Queen of the Mountains as Williams now starts to go clear. Caroline Williams looking very, very good. She's opened up a little bit of a gap, testing the water here for Canyon Esports. Mary Wilkinson is her only other teammate, so Mary will just sit back a little bit. And another very, very popular rider indeed. 116 rides on for the British rider, who's opening up a little bit of a gap here, really testing the others, and perhaps springing a little bit of a surprise. I'm not too sure they've expected that, but with only 10 riders out in that front group, Hannah, you've got to watch everybody and react when you can.
But also making sure that you're patient, that you're not the rider who's reacting to everything. Because when we look at the makeup of this this leading group, there's Caroline Williams with that a second and a half gap. The 9 riders behind, they're made up of Cecilia Hansen, Melanie Maurer, Alice Lethbridge, all from the same team of Heino. We have 1 rider from Movistar, Beth McKeever. We have Mary Wilkinson, who's still in there for Canyon Esports, the teammate of Caroline Williams, Kristen Korchinski, the sole rider from 2024, who is the rider bringing back the British rider Williams, Ariel Vaharin of Aeonian. We have Courtney Nelson from Team Saris, and then Julia Shallow, the sole representation from Beast Mode powered by Rose. So you've got to be really clever and tactical at which moves, which attacks you bring back, because as a rider, if you want to try and score highly come the finish line, you can't go for every attack because you're sort of eaten into your stores. You have to be quite particular.
You certainly do. You have to be selective with when you go. A little bit of brinkmanship as well, maybe forcing others on the back foot, playing your cards close to your chest. All of those commentators' cliches that are going to come into this last lap. But I think the key on this circuit, well, they've got to be tactically shrewd, is who's got the best legs. And this is the sprint now for the final Queen of the Mountains of the day. It looks like it's going to go to McKeever of Movistar. The Scot takes maximum points there. Looks like that was just ahead of Kristen Korchinski. So McKeever, sorry, it was Hansen who was second place behind her with 3 points. Korchinski takes third and 2 points. And Williams, the British rider for Canyon, takes the last set of points. That was the last set of points out on the road. We'll get our running total, but with 20 riders behind this group, all vying for points, it's going to be very, very difficult to score. So lots of races going on separate to the one in front. But of course, there is a lot of kudos to winning one of these races individually as well, as we see a couple of anvils that have been dropped on this descent. This is the only place on the circuit, I think, side for one, that we've seen the anvils being dropped. And the riders are using them a little bit earlier so they don't make the mistake that we saw earlier on by Mary Wilkinson. And we're going into the replay now of that last little sprint. And there it is, Beth McIver, closely challenged, in fact, when she went round the inside. Hansen just in second place, nestled on the wheel, no doubt about it, clear as day there. But McKeever clearly feeling really well over the bridge, and this is where the road starts to kick up for our 10 riders out in front. Shallow now moving to the front as well. Are we going to see a launch? Are we going to see an attack on this climb, or are we going to see an attack on the final steep climb of Pop Bank? Korchinski now moves to the front. There is the situation on the road. 15 for Movistar, Beast Mode 11, Heino with 10, 2024 with 4, and Saris with 3. But lots more points. It's the points at the end that are going to be the significant thing today as we look at the ruins of the church on the left-hand side. And I tell you what, there's going to be some ruined legs after this race, Hannah.
There certainly is a good way to sum it up, Matt, that it is going to be so attritional. These riders, it's going to take a long time for them to recover from tonight's racing, and to not only for the riders in this front group because of the attrition, but also those riders in the groups, the chasing groups behind, although not vying for the individual victory, very much in a position to help their team and the overall team standings. And at the moment, a slight lull on this climb. It's almost like the riders, they're virtually looking at each other, aren't they, to look around who's going to make that move. Korchinski, a slight injection of pace there on the outside as she comes alongside Caroline Williams of Canyon Esports in that pink and purple jersey.
Well into the final lap now. We've got the hardest climb of this circuit still to come. This is the Tour of Tewit Well in Yorkshire. the scene of the World Championships back in 2019 and the scene of the most attritional race. In fact, we only have 10 survivors in the front group. Kristen Korchinski is the rider you're looking at the moment. A casual 4.6 watts a kilo. She does make it look very, very easy, but she's clearly just holding back a little bit here. Doesn't want to show a hand. Maybe is going to try something on this steep climb. A lot of damage has been caused on the climb of Pot Bank with its 20% slopes. Out of the shuttle there, as casual as you like for Korchinski. Settles back down into that rhythm. 6.6 kilometres to go. Very difficult to call, but the next rider on the road in 11th place, Stephanie Sidlick from Canyon Esports, is now a minute back. So Hannah, nobody's going to get back in contact. The winner will come from this front group. I'm going to go through those riders one more time for you. Cecilia Hansen, Melanie Mora and Alice Lethbridge. 3 riders in front for Heino Racing. 1 rider from Movistar in the blue, that is Beth McKeever of Scotland. Mary Wilkinson and Caroline Williams there from Canyon Esports in that rather fetching purple and red kit. The sole representative of 2024 is the American Kristen Korchinski. We've got Ariel Verhaeren of the Aeonian Racing team in there too. Courtney Nelson from Team Saris, and the last rider in that group in the black and orange Beast Mode powered by Roses, Julia Shallow, who was 7th last week. And it is getting pretty tactical now as they head towards Pot Bank, Hannah, for the final time.
Yeah, it's looming on us. 760 metres total. That Pot Bank climb, an average gradient of 7.7%, but with gradients reaching a maximum of 20% for those riders who don't want to leave it to a reduced bunch sprint. This is a perfect platform, a perfect springboard for those riders to make a move. And we just see a rider carrying a lot of speed, just then moving up through the group, up towards the front. Alice Lethbridge, just there.
This is that little slight rise before it drops down again. It's a gently meandering run-in. They have a little bit of momentum into the lower slopes. The road just drops again, as you can see. The pace picks up, 5.5 kilometres to go. There's a little left, a little right, and then it swings to the left again, and that is where the gradient really does start to bite. Just on this left-hander, that's where it really kicks up. So 21% in fact. Hairpin number 2 coming up. And Korchinski's got a featherweight power-up, Hannah. 9.912 watts a kilo as well. This is a big move. This is a move, I think, to try and break the will of the others. Korchinski opens up a small lead of 1.3 seconds.
Nelson out of the saddle. She's trying with everything she's got to try and bring back Korchinski. She doesn't have the power up, the featherweight power up, but she just look at that. The acceleration from Hansen, 9.4 watts per kilo to try and bring back the supreme climber from 2024. And this is what it looks like, picture in picture, in her pain cave, in her pain kitchen, out of the saddle. This really, Kristen Korchinski, she means business. She wants to try and split this one, Matt.
She's almost destroying her bike in the process. Look at the power she's putting through the bike. Remember, she only weighs about 50 kilograms. She's sticking out over 300 watts and has been for nearly a minute now. 159 ride-ons as well. And she's split this group asunder. Korchinski leads. McIver in second place. Hansen there. 3 riders now have opened up a lead of around 5 seconds. Courtney Nelson is chasing and Korchinski goes again. She's really giving it to these riders behind. They're suffering in her wake. And she's starting to open up a little bit of a lead here.
And she knows that if she's suffering, then the other riders are certainly suffering more than she is. And if she can keep chipping away and keep making these explosive accelerations, she's going to make it so difficult for any rider to get back on terms. And every time Hansen closes that gap, she's already on the limit. Every time she sees that Korchinski gains a few more meters, a few more bike lengths, gains a little bit more time, it's also that mental aspect. It has a negative impact because you sort of start to lose that mental strength. You know that you're already sort of beaten, and Korchinski opening up just less than a second to Hansen. Just take a look at that.
Well, she's bludgeoning these riders. She's got them on the ropes, to use a couple of other sporting analogies, and out of the saddle again. She does not give up. She keeps on pounding those pedals. 3 riders now clear. The other 2 really struggling to get back on. McKeever there in the blue for Movistar just about gets back into the slipstream of the American. Every time the road rises, she's out of the saddle, trying to break the will of McKeever and Hansen, but she hasn't. 3 riders clear, and now a big gap to the rest. Nelson is the next rider on the road for Team Saris. She's on her own at 13 seconds. Shallow, 5th on the road at 15 seconds. She has Williams, Mora and Wilkinson with her, and then Ariel Vaharan at 23 seconds now. So it looks as if the win on today's race, this is round 4, it is the Tour of Tewit Well, is going to go between one of these riders. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be the Scot, Beth McKeever, on the front now for the Spanish Esports World Tour team, Movistar? Is it going to be the American Kristen Korchinski, one of the most popular riders out there, plying her trade for 2024? Or is it going to be the ridiculously talented and vastly experienced Cecilia Hansen of Sweden for Heino? Difficult to call this one, but we've got a couple of nasty little kickers still to come, Hannah. 3.4 to go.
Well, Korchinski said she only needs a short moment, a short time to recover after making those efforts she did on this flatter section, and she's gone again. She doesn't need a climb to try and split things up. Korchinski has gone in pursuit of the victory and the maximum points here for 2024. She's picked up another second over Beth McKeever and Hansen, and you just saw the urgency in Cecilia Hansen's pain cave. She was straight on the pedals, making that explosive acceleration. For Korchinski, though, she's poised and ready, isn't she?
Look at the numbers. She's holding 4.5 watts a kilo. Beth McKeever 3.4, Hansen 1.9 because she's on the wheel, just saving that little bit of energy. This is where the road kicks again. This is a cruel drag. It's about 600-700 meters long, but its averages around 6%. Look at Hansen. Hansen desperately trying to get herself back in contact. She's surging across this gap, and look at the cadence there, 8.9 watts a kilo, nearly an hour of racing, over an hour of racing, and the Swede romps past the American on this drag. A counter punch by the Swede from Team Heino. She now is on the offensive, 8%. The gradient continues to ride here. What a battle we are seeing in round 4 of the ZRL, and it's now McKeever trying to bring back Hansen.
Well, that's going to give Hansen that added edge, isn't it? Just seeing that she could overhaul, bring back Korchinski after several attempts, after several blows, after several attacks. And look at that, the effort from Korchinski. I think 2 seconds, 3.4 seconds. I think the efforts have just taken its toll. McKeever able to get back on terms with Cecilia Hansen here with 2.2 kilometers to go. McKeever, look at that, locked on the wheel of the Swede, a rider who got a bronze medal at the UCI Esports World Championships last year.
Well, she's looking very good. She's locked, as you say, Hannah, on to the wheel of Celia Hansen. She's not, I don't think she'll even give her a turn here. 2.1 kilometers to go. We're just cresting that little bit of a drag. And this is the picture of McKeever, of Kristen Korchinski, and she's back on straight over the top as well. Korchinski straight past the other two. What a battling performance this is by the American. This is an absolutely sensational race. It really is to and fro, 185 ride-ons. Please do get involved in the comments. Please do fire up your apps and give these riders what they deserve. They absolutely love it. It's all about the community here. What a fascinating prospect this run into line is going to be. 1,700 meters to go now, and we will know who is going to be the winner of round 4 of the ZRL here in Yorkshire, the Tour of Tewit Well. 3 riders out in front as we approach the Flamme Rouge. Beth McKeever of Scotland riding for the Movistar E-Team. Kristen Korchinski of 2024 and Cecilia Hansen of Heino. Hannah, 1 kilometre and counting to go.
What a special, frantic finale this has been. What an attritional race throughout. It's coming down to these 3 riders, and the only thing that I want to see now is picture in picture all these 3 riders. How are they going to try and take the victory here into Harrogate for round 4 of the ZRL? It's starting to get a little bit cagey now between these riders. No one wanting to take it up. Hansen just leaving the gap, starting to rush the gap to Korchinski, just waiting, being patient. 800 meters to go, and from here we'll have a slight downhill before we take that final left-hand turn, and then it's around 300 meters to the finish line. But between these 3 riders, who's got what it takes to try and take the victory?
Who's gonna drink from the springs of victory? Korchinski, McKeever Hansen, 550 metres to go, and the all-important power-ups as well. Who has saved one up? And the first power-up is opened up there, the draft power-up there. 2 draft power-ups, Korchinski and also Hansen have got that one. Then they open up the sprint here, 300 metres to go. Makiva's going. Look at the power of the rider from Movistar. She immediately opens up the afterburners and in the process opens up a gap on the rest. Her head down, her eyes focused. Look at this, but coming back very, very close. Oh, on the line she gets it. Makiva gets the win there, just ahead of Cecilia Hansen. Absolutely superb victory by the Scottish rider, and this is the battle for 4th place on the day. It looks like it's going to go to Caroline Williams or Courtney Nelson. Just getting it there. It looks like Wilkinson takes that one from Maura. We'll get confirmation soon. Julia Shallow just coming across the line there, the first rider home from Beast Mode powered by Rose in 8th place. Well, what an absolutely breathless ride that was by the Scottish rider Beth Makiva as Lethbridge crosses the line. But Verhaeren still out on the road, Hannah. What a sprint that was, but in the end, it was pretty emphatic, wasn't it?
That was sensational from Beth Makiva to open up so many bike links like she did. That injection of the acceleration and the power from Beth Makiva there, that was something quite special. And for Korchinski and Hansen, their efforts, they certainly weren't wasted. They solidified the gap. It was only came down to those 3 riders, and what a race we had on our hands. It was just incredible from start to finish. The attritional aspect, riders struggling with the pace from the get-go, and it really came down to a tactical play out in the end between riders and teams.
It was a perfect ploy, wasn't it? Perfect use of a parrot. But there are the results. Beth Makiva of Movistar takes the win here in Yorkshire. Celia Hansen of Heino in 2nd. Kristen Korchinski, her best performance so far this season in the ZRL, as 3rd for 2024. The first home from Canyon Esports is Murray Wilkinson. Then we have 5th place for Melanie Maurer, also from Heino. Caroline Williams is in 6th there for Canyon. The first home from Saris, Courtney Nelson in 7th. Julia Shallow of Beast Mode, powered by Rose there in 8th. Alice Lethbridge in 9th, making it 3 for Heino in the top 10. And then the first home for Aeonian Racing, the American in 10th place, Ariel Verhaeren. Well, I'll let you get back, Hannah. I mean, a last word from you before a quick wrap up, because we're going to be moving on to the men's race very, very shortly. But a quick wrap up from you.
Well, a sensational race, and I look forward to seeing the overall standings as a whole as we go into the final the final 2 races of the season. I mean, incredible stuff there, and one for those climbers. It never really let up, did it? And especially that final half a lap when the move finally started to go, and Korchinski, she let off her power, and then here this run into the finish. Beth Makiva, her acceleration, pure power with around 200 meters to go, and although she had such a prolific gap, it was really significant too. Hansen, she didn't let up. It was head down, eyes focused on that finish, and wow, what a finale that was.
It certainly was. Hannah, thank you very much. As ever, I'll let you get back onto the sofa with Dan. I cannot wait to see how the other riders got on and how that will affect the overall standings, because it was very, very tight at the top. But clearly, Heino Racing appeared to have the advantage with 3 riders inside the top 10. But that was absolutely spectacular stuff. What a ride by Beth Makiva. And she opened up with about 250 meters to go. Had the benefit of that draft as well. So that slingshot effect that fired her straight through to take a fine win here in the beautiful spring town of Harrogate. So thank you very much indeed. That was the women's race. Spectacular stuff. Lots to talk about. Over to you guys in the studio.
Well, we said it was going to be a hard race. I didn't realise it was going to be quite that hard. Absolutely bruised out there, just 3 riders fighting it out for the individual victory on today's round 4 out of more than 60 starters. I noticed quite a lot of heart rates well over the 200 mark for most of the race today. We've got very little time actually before we start the men's race, which is coming up very shortly indeed. So what we're going to do is get the standings of the women's and discuss that after we get to the men's race, which is in just a few moments' time. So you've not had a very long break, Matt. We're about to go back over to you and Dave Toll to talk through all the happenings in the men's race here on the ZRL Premier Division.
Well, a very, very quick turnaround indeed. Thanks very much, Dan. We're on to the men's race. Same distance, of course, and the same attritional course. This is round 4 of the ZRL, and we are racing in Yorkshire, the home, the place, the location of the 2019 World Championships, and it's the Tour of Tewit Well. We'll talk about the origins, the history, the heritage of Tewit Well a little bit later, but there are the stats today. Distance 43.5. Elevation gain, look at that, a rather lofty 818 metres, and they are the 3 power-ups that are on offer for the riders today. The ever-popular anvil used for the second time this season, the draft and the feather. And I think it's an opportune time to bring in Dave Towle. Dave, great to have you alongside for the men's race. Breathless racing for the women. We knew, Dave, it was going to be attritional, but not to that extent. So this is set fair for what I think is going to be a very, very difficult and exciting race.
If the men can put together half the race that the women did, we're in for a treat. This course is fantastic for racing. Talk about a course that suits the real hard men out here, Matt. This is going to be absolutely fantastic. So as we get locked and loaded here, same deal. Obviously, the guys are already out on course. It is amazing how quickly we get after it here, as there's points coming up in the first 2 kilometers of this race. We can talk about that, Matt. I wanted to highlight some of the favorites to watch out here today, but again, only the strong are going to survive. Even the first couple of laps, you're going to see clearly. There's just no way around it. We're going to see a selection here just about every time the road goes uphill. I mean, that course profile really does look like a saw blade. I mean, a rusty saw blade, to tell you the truth. And I think I see blood dripping off it, because there's going to be some really damaged legs out here. I think these guys realize that, Matt, to tell you the truth, that this is going to be one of the hardest days that we've really seen in the history of esports.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that women's race was nothing short of spectacular and absolutely brutal as well. I don't think it's going to be any different for the men as they hit the climb for the first time. And as you said, this first climb comes very, very early indeed. It's by far the easiest climb. There are points on offer, but not a lot of points. And we saw a lot of riders backing off. There's only points for the first 4 riders across the line. 5, 3, 2 and 1 on the King of the Mountains. But the first rider to try and go clear, or to ease himself off the front on this climb. 1.2 k's long, an average gradient of 3.8%, with the steepest part coming at the bottom. It's Dean Cunningham of Scotland, perhaps wanting to emulate Beth McKeever earlier on. The Scots having a good evening so far here. Not too far from the border, of course, in the Yorkshire, but Cunningham back in the bunch. But they are moving up this climb very, very quickly indeed. And I'm wondering if we're going to see any riders, Dave, get the anvil wrong on this descent. It's timing with the anvil crucial. 50 kilograms in addition to your weight.
Matt, this has to be the only power-up that can actually backfire on you, right? I mean, if you use the feather or draft at the wrong time, I mean, sure, it's not ideal, but it's not a massive problem for you to overcome. But boy, that anvil can take you right off the front or right out the back of this group. And so again, it's about a 1 kilometer run up to the first points that we have on offer, scoring that 5, 3, 2 and 1. There's a name to watch out for today. I mean, in all honesty, it's going to be the usual suspects. You could really list that entire Next Enshored team. James Barnes now looks to equal Freddie Ovitt today, and it's entirely possible that Barnes out of New Zealand on Next could have his 3rd win out here. And here we go, Matt. Take a look at the sprint. There it is.
Yep, that would look like it was Emmerich that took that one very, very close indeed. It was your friend and mine and everybody's, in fact. Turgles, who went on the offensive first, but he was mopped up. We'll have a look at that in slow motion in a few moments. Get confirmation of the first points. It was Emmerich who took it from Beast Mode powered by Rose there. Devola in 2nd place there for Deepak Elite. Nilsson in 3rd, and then Theme giving 2 riders there for Beast Mode up in the front group. So good start from them. And already this field starting to thin out a little bit, and unsurprisingly, lots of anvils being dropped, but they're doing it nice and early, Dave. They're not getting this one wrong. They're making sure, because it's a long one and you're traveling at pace, so you need to time this one to absolute perfection. Dave, we're getting a replay in just a couple of seconds time. Let's have a look at the first sprint again for that King of the Mountains.
So as we go back, I mean, it happened so quickly out here. That's the Belgian Lennart Tugels here, as he's going to get swarmed in the final few meters. We don't score this one that deep. It's not like our sprints, as this is more in the line of the king of the mountain out here. And that was a good look at the first action out here today. Things are stringing out already, Matt. Look at that. Riders, it's very rare at this level that you would see guys in trouble just a few K in. That was the aforementioned Barnes moving up to the front. Man, there's Mel, the Norwegian. So these are some of the names that you would expect to see near the sharp end of the group. It is amazing. Okay, Matt. This is just full gas all day out here today. This might be the most exciting 43 kilometers of racing we see. And there's going to be the man out of Denmark, Michael Knudsen. He was on the podium at the World Championships on December 9th last year, and I'd expect him to be back. He and Anders Foldager are two very, very dangerous riders, and we are hearing through the grapevine that Michael's coming back into good form. He will be a weapon out on this course today. Watch out for that green of Pio Otto. We haven't seen them as active as they would like to be, and they certainly are a team that specializes in the team time trial coming up next week. That's going to be Leonard Tugels. He's a breakaway specialist out of Belgium. This course suits him incredibly well. And Teppo Lorio, he is back, the fantastic Finnish rider there. All right.
Indeed, great shot of Tugels there out of the saddle. Performs well in the classics and the semi-classics. Remember, as well as being a regular for the BZR Sports Solid team, he's a pro as well, rides at continental level, and has had a really packed season of riding on the Belgian cobbles, the Flandrian roads, those bergs as well, and those the attributes that he has really suits that sort of terrain. And every single week so far in this season of the ZRL, he has been on the offensive. One of the most exciting riders out there, willing to animate, willing to take a risk, willing to try and make the other riders suffer as well. And on a course like this, I think it's really going to suit him. But he's just got to make sure that he doesn't do too much too early. We've done almost half a lap, and they are whizzing around this course very, very fast. We've the fastest lap, in fact, in the ZRL for the men's on this particular course of Tewit Well as a Stefan Kirkmaier. 14 minutes, 32 seconds at an average speed of 341 watts, 44.8 k's an hour, as we get our first look at Ed Veal of Canada.
Ed, the real deal Veal. This guy is a monster, no doubt about it. And, you know, Matt, I think we're getting to that point in the season now where you look at the top 5 teams in the standings as we're through the mid part of the season, as Dan Lloyd was saying. Now, this is where it frees up riders. If your team isn't sitting up in that battle for the top 5 spots, I think is a good dividing line. Kind of frees you up to go out for an individual win, maybe ride your own race out here today. And that makes riders a little more dangerous. You're not exactly sure what's going to be happening out here as we lead into the final lap of racing. Each lap out here just under 11 kilometers. They're doing 4 laps, but I think really the most important stat you were talking about, Matt, is the 818 meters that come at you relentlessly out here today. Things calming down. Obviously, that first bonus that we had definitely heated things up, but maybe cooling down a little bit, Matt. Back to you.
This is the Pot Bank climb there. Yes, sorry to cut across. This is the steep climb of Pot Bank at the bottom. Kicks up 20%, 21%, and still drags on, still 13% here. Loads of power-ups, as you would expect, being used here. And the one you want on this climb is the featherweight power-up, which reduces your weight by 10%. We're looking at John Verne there, 8.9 watts a kilo. Double fan system there for the Swede from Team Swedish Zwifters. Midway through the pack here, Voyasun is just up there as well. So we've got 35 ride-ons as well for the Swede. Let's look at the kind of power, Dave, that he's having to sustain just to stay midway through that group as Barnes, the winner last week, goes on the offensive.
Yeah, this is amazing right now. Look at this. It's almost entirely Next and Canyon on the front. The entire Next team has hit the front. So this is going to be a huge moment. Expect a major selection here early. That's the 2-time winner here already this season, James Barnes out of New Zealand. He has been fantastic, but along with all 5 riders are sitting up in the top I would say top 20 at this moment, and now it's starting to come back together a little bit, but you can feel that you can't take your eye off the ball for a moment out here, Matt.
Yeah, great riding by Barnes. Just look at that. Sat forward on the saddle. Such a stylish rider, as you said correctly. They have had an absolute sensational season, but look at this attritional course. It lends itself to the quality or the attributes of a rider like Turgles. He's on the offensive again. We're only 3/4 of the way through lap number 1, and Turgles on the front again for Belgian and Bizadar Sports Solid. Tepolorio is there as well from Finland, from Houle, not too far away, but going through to the front. Jimmy Kershaw of Great Britain and the Movistar team. Let's have a look back through the group as they round the corner. This is that roller coaster road. It's arrow straight, almost like an undulating runway, all the way to 300 meters to go, where they swing left and they'll go through the finish line for the first time. How many riders are in the front group? In fact, it's still a pretty big group here, Dave. We've got 62 riders in this front group, or 60 riders, should I say. So we already lost, well, 30 or 40 riders in the opening lap.
In the first 7K, we lost a third of the field. That is unprecedented in the ZRL. This is a day that we certainly aren't going to forget. The Swedish rider here, he has been one of the breakthrough riders this season, no doubt, when you talk about John Verm here. And he just dangling off the front. Is this an invitation, Matt? Looking for some riders to come with him here? It's when you look at this course, they're still, midway through the first lap, awfully early for a breakaway. And the other thing that's interesting now is there's not as many bonus points. Last week, there were a massive number of points available out there with sprint after sprint. There were 6 of them and 10 points for the winner. Today, it's a much more measly number of bonus points that you can get. Those bonus points are the same as the finish points, to tell you the truth. There's really no reason to differentiate them, with 50 points waiting for the winner at the finish line today. But John's going to go right back. That group looks smaller to me, Matt. That's for sure.
Yeah,
this is not the normal day here on the ZRL.
It certainly isn't. No, we knew this was going to be a hard course, and just by the momentum of the racing, nobody's managed to steal too much of a march. The biggest gap, in fact, was by the Swede then. Was that a second and a half? Turgles also a rider that's managed to go clear, and we did see the winner of last week's race, James Barnes, also have a little bit of a go, but what a season they have had so far, leading the standings in the men's series. 4 riders inside the top 10 as we get our first look at Saris's Matt Gardner out of the United States of America, out of the saddle. This is another one of these drags. Just look at the top right of your screen there, 7%. This is another horrible little part of the course that really does chip away at your reserves. You've really got to measure your effort, but he's having, again, just to stay in the bunch, you're having to put out 6.5 watts a kilo. No wonder riders are regularly getting dropped.
It's like a ticking time bomb, Matt. You feel like there's going to be an explosion at any moment. You can never really be at ease. And for the back 15 riders here, I think they're in a little bit of trouble. Once again, you can see it's pitching up to 6% here. That's not certainly anything massive for these guys. This is going to be the finish rider, Tepolorio, as he's off of the front right now. So Wahoo Coles brought their A game today, but it really is just crushing it right now. James Barnes up and over the top right now. And even Teppo has to shake his head at how strong this 2-time winner this season. Nobody is on a better trajectory than James Barnes here. Next is, it's amazing to see him already attacking this race or applying pressure. But Matt, here we go. Again, there's just absolutely no quarter offered or any being given out here today.
Now 2 riders clear. That's an interesting move by Barnes to go so early. Tepolorio was overtaken straight back into that super tuck for both of these riders here. A little bit of an opportunity to rest and recover. Very soon they'll see the Flamme Rouge denoting 1 kilometre to go, but this is just the opening lap. And if you are just joining us, this is round 4 of the ZRL, the Zwift Racing League. This is the men's race, and we are in Yorkshire, the scene in 2019 of the World Road Racing Championships. And this particular permutation of this beautiful, hard course is the Tour of Tewit Well. And we're coming towards the end of lap number 1 of 4. Total distance today of 43.38 Ks. And already in this race, we've seen around 30 or 40 riders gone. We've only got about 55 riders in this front group, and that's just been riders out of the back. No real big attacks have gone clear. It's so hard to stay in the group. Very, very difficult indeed. Coming up to that left-hander very shortly, Dave, and we'll get our first glimpse of this finishing straight, and it opens up, and it's the only real flat bit of the course, isn't it? This is really the only, there's only this 400-metre stretch here that offers up. Well, actually, we're still descending, still -3. Here we go. We could just keep your eye on the gradient on the right. Just as they swing to the left, the road flattens, 300 metres to go, This is the only real flat bit of the course as we take a look at Will Budge of Great Britain just sitting at the back of this group here, Dave.
This course is so hard. You've heard of a false flat before. This is a false descent. You feel like you're going even uphill on the downhills. And this is going to be the Argentinian Ariel Savori here, taking a bit of a run at it there, as that was the finish arch. It's very complicated finale as you make the run in here through Harrogate into the finish line. Savori, it's nice to see. Again, we've got some Brazilian riders, Argentinian riders, and yeah, no one's in his draft right now. You can see our heat map really showing. I love this graphic, Matt. We've talked about that. You can see a lot of anvils being dropped just on this light descent here. But this is a time when you can get rid of the anvil and use it to your advantage, Matt. So Gruppo Compatto, 55 riders together now.
Yep.
You can bin it
if
you
the road
want.
kicks
You don't
up. Yeah,
have to use it. You can certainly
you
just go ahead and put that into the trash. But I think these riders said, hey, if we're going downhill a little bit, why not use it? Back to you, Matt.
No, definitely. It's 30 seconds long. Remember, if you've not seen the anvil being used before, this is only the second time in the ZRL's history we've had the anvil power-up used. As we head back on very, very quickly to this nasty little climb. We're looking now at Ed Morgan from Deepak. You can see he's got his screen just to the left-hand side. Big fan going on there as well. Surprised he's got an undergarment on, trying to keep as cool as possible. But just towards the back of that group, we're getting pretty much maximum draft benefit by sitting there. 6.1 watts a kilo, casually just rolling round at 400 watts. Again, everybody watching this, if you've got any sense of what it means to deliver that sort of power, it really does put into perspective the fitness, the level that this sport is at. You've got to be very, very strong, very, very fit indeed, as we get our first glimpse of Mario Voits, the Dutch rider, has moved across to Canyon after riding for the Dutch Zwifters team. But looking good there, and a rather lovely backdrop as well. Looks like he's painted his paint cave in Zwift corporate colours there, Dave.
Yeah, clearly he's been doing some work, and he's on board. Mako has won I believe it was a season 2 win that he had, and certainly a rider well-suited to this course. So it's not, certainly it's going to be the attacking that makes it tough at the back, and you could see how ragged it has been every time it goes uphill, and it just continues now to put riders into trouble. Sitting in the sweet spot right here, another rider to watch today certainly is going to be the belt. We've seen Leonard Tugels, but Mateus de Roos is particularly well-suited to the course. But, Matt, right now I see a lot of Movistar up near the front as we stay in camera with Mako Votes on Canyon, another team that has been right in the mix and just looking to crack the code on how do we beat Next today, the team in the green jerseys there.
Yep, they have a very, very good team. And we're just moving towards the sprint again, or the King of the Mountains. Jambrosic, the American, on the front, rounding that corner. Takada Ikeda also there. That was very, very close. Vuyasan also in the mix. I think it might have been Takada Ikeda that took that. We'll get confirmation again. Indeed, it was Ikeda, no stranger to going for the King of the Mountains points and showing a clean pair of heels to the Belgian Lionel Vuyasan there in second. Theme in third for Beast Mode. And Tipo Lorio, the only Finnish rider in the field there for Wahoo Lacole in fourth place. As we have a look at the net result of that, Beast Mode powered by Rose are the leading team at the moment in these early stages of this race with 8, Zwift Warriors 5, Deepak Elite with 3, Canyon Esports with 3 as well, and then Fusion ECT with 2. Look at all those beautiful anvils being dropped on this descent here. Lovely to see them being dropped. Remember, 50 kilograms added to your weight. So a few of these riders, if you say average weight 65, 70 kilos, we've got some 130 kilogram riders, 120 kilogram riders rattling down this descent here, Dave. So you combine that with an aero tuck, the net result, very quick.
Yeah, I mean, when you looked at that women's race, you could see that fortune favored the brave out there, and there's no doubt in my mind the same thing will apply here, Matt. You look at these riders sitting, I mean, it is not easy sitting up in the top 20 here. You have to do a lot of work, but you don't want to waste a bullet either. And these little moves going off the front, I wouldn't recommend it right now because there's going to be a surge. And if I look around and see all these green jerseys from Next and Short are gone, I'm going to try to get into that group. That's going to be the train leaving the station. Leonard Tugel's phenomenal heart that this man has. And again, you can see him applying the pressure. At some point, Matt, these efforts from Leonard Tugels or Tepolorio are going to put 15 or 20 more riders out the back door. I have a feeling this might be one of the rare days that we see our winner of this race finish alone.
Indeed. Well, that's a big, big turn on the front by Turgles, who's on the front, stretching this field out. Let's have a look at the Movistar riders. Van Diemen, Mel, Gill, Kershaw. Look at the numbers they're having to kick out to try and stay with the Flying Belgian. 2 Movistar riders have managed to get themselves into this front group. One of them is Vidal Mel. And also in there is Pim van Diemen, the rider from the Netherlands. And this group of 6 riders has opened up a couple of seconds lead on the group behind, which, as you just correctly said, is the result of Turgles, his attacking, tenacious style of riding, trying to bludgeon the rest of the field into submission as they round the top corner. Turgles again on the front. Wow, this rider provides value for money, that is for sure. Super, super confident, super strong, and wants to try and put everybody else on the back foot and tire them out. This is only lap number 2 of 4.
Wow. I mean, you feel like you're into the final lap of racing right now with how active it has been. Leonard Tugels had a stunning win in the Zwift community racing, which takes place on Tuesday, and that helped really launch his BZR team, an entirely Belgian squad, up and into the Premier League. It's much like the Premier League in English football, where top teams are promoted and the bottom teams are demoted. We're going to go back now to another very talented rider out of South Africa, Eddie Houle, here as we look at Eddie. Let's see who wants to go with him. At some point, Matt, this group goes down. And I think before we get to the end of lap 3, this group could easily be under 25 riders. Still well over that right now, but they're going to hit that threshold.
We've got 52. 52 is the exact number. There's one rider just trying to get back in contact at around 8 seconds. If he needs to, is he going to do it? He needs to do it now before we hit the slopes of the Pop Bank climb again. That will come very, very shortly as we look for the first time. The orange headband. I must admit, Jimmy Kershaw, get yourself a blue headband. That clashes a little bit for me, but he's got his headphones on. He's looking good, and he's at the front of this group as we head towards this little series of gentle switchbacks. And then that first kicker, and in around 100 meters times, we will feel the rasp, the wrath of this horrific little climb. This is it. We swing left, and then the road really starts to bite. There's those stats. 22% that hit. Kershaw on the front, and a big, big attack by Barnes again of Next Esports.
Yeah, and Canyon's going to counter. Vidal Mel is going to try to come over the top. So Canyon is making a big run. This one is just body blow after body blow here as the gradient hits 14%. Oh, Matt, look at the back of the group. Look at the front of the group. It looks like a cobra swallowing a pig right now as there's a big bunch in the middle. These guys are on. Nicky Hoog, the Swiss rider here. He was an addition. Next is 1, 2, 3 at this critical moment. We've got a jailbreak here. Pio Otto, that's going to be a big effort from them. Michael Knudsen coming up into this group. And, okay, it's interesting now to see Mark Bruce, as he's a rider that we are just starting to pick up on here in the Next and Short team, and clearly he's up to snuff. So Nicky Hoog, Brian Duffy Jr. is there. Thomas Thrall, winner of week 2 in the ZRL. It's getting very top-heavy right now, Matt.
It certainly is, and they still haven't topped that climb, still 2%. The difficult thing about the Pop Bank climb isn't just the steep slopes, which put you straight into the red. Big, big numbers, double-digit numbers in terms of power to weight ratio and watts per kilo over the top of the climb, should I say. But it's still dragging now, still 5%. And mercifully, in around 100 meters time, as you can see, the road just starts to drop off, just starts to lessen a little bit. But what a performance here so far in terms of grouping at the head of affairs, making it difficult for everybody else by Next Esport. Super, super bit of riding. Every single rider. There was one point about a kilometre ago, they were the first 6 riders on the road. They are looking formidable. What are the other teams going to do about this? Well, that remains to be seen. 26.1 Ks to go. Let's have a look at Bruce, making it look very, very easy. Our first glimpse, let's have a look at that. Let's give that an out of 10 for the Pain Cave. I'd give that a solid 7.5.
Yeah, almost looks like a retail location that he's running there. If you need to get a new helmet or socks or something. Looks like he'd be well stocked. I have to say, Movistar, Matt, is having their best ride in the ZRL maybe ever, to tell you the truth. They've had some, actually, to be fair, they've had some big days out here. But clearly, this squad is up for the challenge. It looks like PO Auto Ceramic Speed has also stepped up. So we're starting to get some other teams jumping into the mix. And obviously, you can see a lot of white, blue, and yellow. Swedish Zwifters have put their best foot forward today. So there we go. Another volley. Who's survived it? As we're not even close to the midway point of this race yet. And legs are already starting to get heavy out here. You know, the name I haven't seen, Matt, and I'm looking for is Matthias de Roos. I was expecting to possibly hear a little more from him today.
Well, there's 44 riders in this front group at the moment. There's 2 riders at Henrik Oya and Eddie Houle, who put that attack in earlier on. They're 15 seconds behind, so only 44 riders now in this front group. We lost another 5 or 6 on the climb of Pot Bank as we look at Mark Bruce. Looks like he's got his coach in there. Looks pretty comfortable. That was also Matthias de Roos. So de Roos is in this group. So we're looking at de Roos now from Canyon Esports, looking pretty confident. BZR, should I say. De Roos looking good. Shirt flapping there in the breeze, trying to keep as cool as possible. And this little downhill section, sat in the wheels. One of few opportunities on this course to get a little bit of an opportunity to recover. 14 ride-ons. Again, please, like you did in the women's race and like you're doing already, please get involved in the comments below the video and get involved in the community as well. Give these riders some ride-ons. It really does give them that extra little bit of motivation and maybe will help them suffer just that little bit more as de Roos continues just to get out of the saddle a little bit. This is where the road rises. This drag here is about 600 meters long at 7%. It's a part of the course we don't really even talk about, but it's just another illustration. You talked about that rusty sawtooth profile. This is more like a prehistoric giant alligator tooth profile.
I can't argue there, Matt. Matthias de Roos looks like he takes style tips from Wout van Aert, to tell you the truth. I get a feeling a lot of the young Belgian racers are on board with that. Here's a classic Norwegian strongman covering the move on the front. That's James Barnes out of New Zealand, and then Vidar Mel right there. These are very, very familiar names at this point as we see, again, it kind of goes back and forth out here. These big efforts get made, but then everyone realizes, I think, that we've got quite a bit of racing to do. Wouldn't surprise me at all, though, to see Leonard Tugels finding the front again, as it seems like he's got a couple more of these surges in him. And I get the feeling, Matt, he's doing work today to try to soften up this group for his teammate, Matthias de Roos. But we'll find out as that final chapter is, we're not even close to that part of the book yet.
Yep, next time through will be the half distance. We've got about 2 kilometers till we get to that point on this long straight road. And if you do take the time to have a look at this map, this is essentially a dead straight bit of road, around 3.5 kilometers long, as we hit another little bit of a downhill section. It's like a little bit of a roller coaster. We're seeing another anvil being dropped. You've got to time those right, as we said before, because it's one of the power-ups that lasts for a pretty long time. 30 seconds adding to your weight by a quite astonishing and quite a dense 50 kilograms. And we saw a couple of riders in the women's race get it wrong and end up going backwards like a sack of potatoes. As we look at Gledner's now, there's the draft. That really gives you an indication of where to sit, where the best place to sit is, and just shows how long this draft extends with this amount of riders at this sort of speed. And there is our glimpse for the second time in today's race of the Flamme Rouge. So 1 kilometre to go till we reach the half distance point in this race. And Gledner's back on the power there, just at the back of that group.
Yeah, another former winner in the ZRL who's got that credential, the bona fides. So again, Matt, you're talking about the anvil. That's 50 kilograms added weight. That is, as Dan Lloyd was joking, that's like putting a Korchinski on your back, right? You got a whole nother rider there to help you get down the hill. 30 seconds. The van that you see, that's a 50% increase in draft for 30 seconds. And then the feather, the lightweight, 10% off your weight for 15 seconds. And this anvil is a game only, race only. There's the finish line now. So you have to remember that we're going backwards on the world's course rather than the direction that they raced on here.
Totally, yeah. They normally come the other way, up that nasty little drag. So they come into the finishing straight from the right. They turn right as Kershaw now goes clear. So Jimmy Kershaw, a rider not averse to a little bit of a cheeky attack, just moves clear, but is brought back very, very quickly indeed by James Barnes. Barnes always at the head of affairs, happy to ride in the wind as well. Another couple of anvils being dropped as we drop down past the draft house. The pump rooms are on the left-hand side and the Zwift draft house on the right, but no chance to stop for some ales, no chance to stop for scones and cakes at Betty's Tea Rooms. It's all about battling for the win today. And remember, this is a points race as well. Points out on the King of the Mountains and points for the first 30 riders across the line at the end of this race. There's the kudos of winning, but it's all about accumulating as many points as you can for your team. And the team who accumulates the most points at the end of the race will be the winning team on the evening. As a couple of anvils still in play here as the road kicks up. This is where you don't want an anvil, Dave.
No, and the timing, again, how many of the power-ups can backfire on you? Well, this one can, but it looks like, oh, there's still a couple that you see there. This is going to be week 2 winner, the Canadian Thomas Thrall, part of a franchise at this point that Next Esport has put together. You can't talk enough about how strong this team is, and he's comfortably back in the sweet spot. I love that heat map that we show with the draft, and actually right now he's on the edge, so he wouldn't really be feeling that as your avatar gets moved around a little bit. No problem at all for Thomas Thrall, though. He can make the watts. That man can float around almost at will right now. Not many riders could say that as we continually reshuffle the group through really just through the middle part of the race. And if you're in the group now, you've already proven yourself to me. There's a lot of depth, Matt, in the ZRL. And I think at this point in the race, you realize this group right here, these are the real gladiators of esports because they've already been through a lot, and some of these guys have more to give.
They certainly have. Well, this is the climb. We've got around 300-400 meters to go to the top. It bears to the right. You don't actually see the finishing line itself, or the banner, should I say, for the King of the Mountains until the last couple of meters as it turned to the right. A couple of featherweight power-ups been used by one of the riders from Team Swedish Zwifters on at the left-hand side. Akita, he took this one last. He's just waiting towards the back, perhaps ready to pounce. Looking good, and a rider has just chipped off the front there from Team Saris. That's David Talbot. Opened up his sprint very, very early, kicking out 8.1 watts a kilo. Just the road, still a fair distance to go. You can just see the little T-junction there where the road swings to the right, also for the left on this course. But Talbot now 2 seconds lead. It's Russell and also James Barnes from Next Esports, powered by Enshored. 2 times a winner, straight past. This is Thiem as well. Thiem there, the German rider for Beast Mode, powered by Rose. Looks like he's going to taste this one. Uses the fan draft as well. Got half a second lead. Jam Rosic there as well. This is the corner. Comes into sight. Very, very good. A bit of point scoring there. Second place, I think, is going to go to Akita there. It is Akita in second place. So good bit of time there by Thiem. Akita, Jamrozic, and then Zivori of World Elite Zwifters in 4th place there, Dave.
Ariel's having a strong ride out here today, the Argentinian riders. We're going to reshuffle a little bit. As you could say about our Japanese friends, and remembering that right now in Tokyo, it's something like, at this point, 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Really, really challenging for them to be able to pull off and getting motivated to race at this time. They go above and beyond, no doubt about it. The Zwift Warriors team, as that's going to be Takato heading back into the group. Let's go back and take a look at that last bonus sprint.
Well, here it is again. Talbot went very, very long, just a little bit too long. Had nothing to answer when the German rider came by. And look at that, several lengths clear. In fact, almost the length of that finishing straight, that micro finishing straight for that intermediate King of the Mountains. And this is the front group. Akita just towards the back, gets in that little super tuck just on the back of the group there, carrying that momentum into the bottom of the climb. That is the situation. So good night so far with Beast Mode Power by Road leading with 13 points. Zwift Warriors there with 8, courtesy of the man we're looking at, Akita. Deepak Elite with 3, same points as Canyon Esports, and then Fusion CT currently in 5th with 2 points, so not a bad night for them. But as you can see, not too many points on offer tonight on those intermediates, which really swings the pendulum in favour of high finishes at the end of this race as we get our first look at Takato Ikeda, a wonderful climber. His best placing was in Innsbruck a couple of seasons ago, where he placed 3rd. And just look at the numbers he's having to put out just to get back into contention as a rider jumps clear. Again, it's Michael Knudsen, Dave, who's jumped clear for PO Auto Ceramic Speed and has opened up a second lead on the front.
He's back, no doubt about it. The Dane has not been underperforming, but I think he's been building into this season. Michael, a former police officer who now works with kids there in Denmark, and it's just a great spirit. David Talbot getting up now. Saris is really looking to make their mark today. This is another team that's dangerous, without a doubt, with Matt Gardner, David Talbot, Gavin Dempster, Eric Levinson, and Matt Kerbeau. They have some real weapons on that squad. This is David Talbot, another one of the Americans on Saris. It's mostly Americans actually on this team outside of Gavin Dempster, who is Scottish. But Talbot on the charge right now. He's going to put some riders in trouble.
This is a good move by Talbot as he comes towards the top of this climb. And just shutting him down is Knudsen. But they've got a 6-second lead and more on the group behind. So this is the first significant breakaway that we've seen tonight in this, as we've next time through will be the, well, we're well over halfway, 1 lap to go. So this race is starting to move very, very quickly indeed. And they've got a nice little lead. Talbot and Knudsen. Morgan is the rider trying to get across the gap at the moment. 42 riders in total at the front of this race. We've lost half the riders already. 17.2 Ks to go. And it is David Talbot of Team Saris on the front at the moment. In his slipstream from Denmark, Michael Knudsen of PO Auto Ceramic Speed. Just 4 seconds behind is Ed Morgan of Wales running for Deepak Elite, and a couple more seconds to the rest of the bunch. So an interesting situation here as we head towards this brutal climb of Pot Bank Hill. With its slopes of 20 and 21%. They need to hold something back because it's very easy to lose a lot of time if you've been away on this climb. And we haven't seen, Dave, so far tonight across men's and women's races, anybody go into this climb with a significant gap yet.
No, and it's hard to get super excited about a small gap right now, knowing how much horsepower is back in that group, Matt, and the fact that with the gameplay, they really have a huge advantage on these short but steep descents. But these two are going to make a run at it, and it looks like they're combining efforts nicely here. And let's watch and see if this turns into a real problem. And I think getting a couple other riders like Morgan that you were talking about there, Matt, 4 or 5 riders with this kind of ambition, they might have a crack at it and certainly stay away until the next bonus points that we have here. This is Daniel Jamrosic that we're going in cam with.
Yeah, it's a great shot as we hit the bottom of the climb there, and a great shot of Morgan in between. We call that Shas Patat, the man in the no man's land, but look at the power of the dominant team in men's e-racing at the moment. It is Next Esports, powered by Enshored. Mass numbers at the front. Featherweights being dropped, power-ups being dropped left, right and centre. Talbot about to be caught with Knudsen, and it is Barnes, the winner of 2 rounds, who goes straight by them, kicking out around 10 watts a kilo. There's a lot of pain going on here. A lot of riders starting to struggle as we see our first real look at Lionel Vujasan as we head over the top of this climb. But this, Dave, is where this climb keeps on going. It doesn't relent for about another 500 or 600 metres.
Yeah, I think we're going to separate the wheat from the chaff right now because it looks like a lot of canyon. There's P.O. Otto, so clearly Michael Knudsen's having a great day. 4 of the top 10 riders are on Next Enshored, looking for that canyon jersey and see if they can go toe for toe out here because Next is lighting the fuse here. And Matt, this has been their modus operandi throughout this entire season. The team has been almost unbeatable, and we're going in with a man that could absolutely take the top spot. It really is a team sport. Your team's points are how we keep score out here, but they've put 4 in the top 10, even better than that, 4 in the top 9 last week. And Nicky Hoog and company are looking to do the same thing again for Next Enshored. They are hitting hard at this point in the race. This is one of the big moments that we're going to have out here today.
It certainly is. Well, Nicky Hoog is moved clear, and the rider shutting him down is Pim van Diemen of Movistar. The rest of the bunch just behind, but these are the power stats, the power numbers of the entire Next Esports Powered by Enshored squad. Thrall, Hoog, Barnes, the winner of 2 rounds. Remember, Bruce Thrall himself a winner, as Dave alluded to earlier on, and Brian Duffy Jr. They round that left-hand corner. The road starts to kick up again. They carried quite a lot of momentum into that corner. And now we have this long series of drags, 2 very long drags, and then 2 long descents as well before we come back into the finish. And then we will take the virtual bell in the heart of beautiful Harrogate. big question is, what are we going to see happen on the next lap, and what has happened on that climb in terms of damage, Dave? Let's have a look at the situation. How many riders are in this front group? We've had another few. 38 riders now in that front group, Dave. In fact, 37. So we lost another 6 on that climb. Lap after lap, this group is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
I'm actually surprised it's this big at this point, with as aggressive as this race has been at this point, Matt. It's going to get smaller, no doubt about it. As when you take a look now, the points at the finish are the name of the game here. There's a minuscule number of bonus points that you've got left out here on course. So I think it's one of these cases now where racing through to the finish line is what's on everybody's mind. And taking a win today, this would be massive for any rider in this field, Matt, because certainly you're judged by the quality of competition and the severity of the course that you're racing on. And that mix today is absolutely potent. As we look at the men who still remain, Movistar having, I think, their best day in a long time. Pim van Diemen, the Dutch rider. We've seen Vidar Mel all over the front today out of Norway. Daniel Gould out of Denmark, and Jimmy Kershaw from the United Kingdom. They certainly have got to be happy, Matt. Having 4 in this group, you're on a good day.
Definitely. Yeah, when you've only got just over 40 riders, 43 riders in the front group, to have 4 there, as you said, when you look at it at the moment, they are going to score a lot of points, but there are several other teams with numbers in at the front. Canyon have multiple riders in this front group, as you can see, with that rather fetching purple and red kit, and Next Esports, undoubtedly the team of the moment with those green jerseys. They have pretty much their full complement in this front group, and they're willing to go on the offensive again. They've got another rider just on the front here who's starting to move clear. Leonard Turgel is also in the centre of the group. That's the rider we're looking at now, picture in picture. He's been quiet, actually, relatively speaking, for him. The first 2 laps, he was pretty aggressive. We haven't seen him go to the front. Is he planning something a little bit different? Is he going to try and go clear on his own rather than try and drag the bunch along as this road kicks up to 9%? This is another one of these horrible drags, but Turgel's making 7.1 watts a kilo look very, very easy out of the saddle. That slightly lower cadence, high torque style that a lot of these riders tend to use as they just crest the top of this climb, and the gradient just starts to ease. Worm is the rider on the front, or was on the front just to the left-hand side. Barnes is now moving clear, so Barnes decides to go clear. We saw him do this earlier on, but Barnes has decided to inject a little bit of pace on his own and open up a little bit of a gap. This is very, very early indeed, but just shows how confident Barnes is. Not just confident, Dave, in his own ability, but confident in his teammates too.
And what I love about this is it's a win-win situation. One of the danger men in the race, and again, to give you some perspective, James Barnes goes all the way back. If you looked at his Zwift ID number, which I don't know the equivalent in the United Kingdom, but it'd be like your REI card here, where if your number is under 100, that means you were one of the first people to ever go to that store. Well, he's kind of in that position. He was one of the first people who ever rode on Zwift as a really young man, and now as he's come into establishing his career as an esports champion. This is one of the OGs of not racing esports, but just riding on that first Watopia, Jarvis even. And now here he is with a win rate that is unprecedented. Even Freddie Ovitt has to shake his head, because James Barnes, if he wins today, will have won 3 races faster than anyone else. It's quite amazing what he's doing, but also he's helping his teammates out. Every time that you see a next rider move to the front or even off the front, it puts the pressure on certainly Canyon right now. Taking a deep breath here as we reload. One final lap of racing here, Matt.
This is fantastic stuff. It's a great shot there of Barnes, just using that moment. When he got into the aero tuck, he's in one again, just to get that gel down. A little bit of caffeine, keeping your system nice and fueled, because this is going to be near there or thereabouts an hour of racing. So although it's a short and spiteful, it's actually heading into pretty deep into endurance territory as well. So it's so important these riders keep themselves hydrated as we get our first look at the rider from the Netherlands, from Canyon Esports, Antoine van Noppen, in a very interesting pain cave. It looks like he's in some strange artistic alleyway there. I do like it. I don't quite know where he is. Is he indoors? Is he outdoors? Is it a combination of the two? Who knows? It just looks pretty funky to me. But we are coming up to the bell now. Back through the finishing straight, 100 metres to go before they go under the banner here in this beautiful spring town of Harrogate. Dave, 1 lap to go.
by far the most avant-garde pain cave that we've ever seen. One to go out here now, and certainly there's that name, Lionel Viasen, a rider that we thought this course would suit. Got to give Spencer Segovich credit for his Canyon team. This American has quietly positioned himself to be a consistent top 10 rider out here. That's the kind of guy you need on your team, Matt. When you talk about the points, 50 for the winner today, 40 for second, 35 for third, and then they stack up almost one by one, but there's a significant difference if you can get up into the top three. Those spots are going to be the most valuable real estate in Yorkshire, that's for sure. As we take a look at this group, brace yourself now, heading out into this last lap. You know there's going to be fireworks today. Again, Matt, I'm amazed to see this group this large. On a course this tough, I expect it to be even more selective.
It has been selected to a degree, but maybe not as much as we thought. Not quite as selective as the women's race earlier on, but we're now looking, as we head deep into this last lap, or the early stages, should I say, of this last lap, on to the climb again. This is Matt Kurbal of the United States of America riding for Saris, kicking out 5 watts a kilo plus 20 ride-ons. So please make sure you do get involved. Give these riders as much encouragement as you can by using your companion app, getting behind these riders, also getting involved in the comments. We've got a wonderful community, more and more viewers every week watching this racing as we head about halfway up this climb now. It's 3.8% average, 1.2%, 1.2 kilometers in distance, but it's not by any stretch the hardest climb on this circuit. In fact, it is the easiest, but that is where we do have the King of the Mountains points. But I think teams now and riders are going to be looking a little bit longer as a team. They are the team so far tonight who have the most points on these intermediate points.
Yeah, Christoph Thiem, the German for Rose Beast Mode, has collected quite a few points himself, and you can see this is great to be in camera in Germany with him right now, as Christoph is poised to pick up another 5, or he certainly would like to snatch those, as it comes up very, very quickly here. It's a little bit deceptive, as obviously getting caught out is not going to be a problem for these guys as they're out on the last ronde here, but they're only about 300 meters. You certainly don't want to go too early here. That's one thing. Timing is critical in racing, and I would even say it clearly matters as much, if not more, that arrow feather there. So taking a look now at rider starting to motor away. As a matter of fact, Matt, I don't know that he comes back, to tell you the truth, as we take a look at Wahoo Lacole's Russell here off the front, and I think this should be good for 5.
Yep, looking good.
Consistent Ariel Savory.
Yep, just coming towards the top of the climb. Russell has opened up a nice little lead, 1.3 seconds, but there's a couple of power-ups being used just behind Thiem. He's determined to try and take him on the line, carrying a lot of momentum into that corner, but I don't think he has just run out of tarmac. He's going to have to settle for second place, but Ben Russell from Wahoo Lacole takes maximum points there. Thiem in second, and then we have Savory in third, and Tipo Lorio, giving 2 riders in the top 4 there, 2 riders scoring points for Wahoo Lacole, so good for them. So that's the last opportunity to take any points. But significantly, Dave, that's the last opportunity to get a power-up. So if you've got an anvil, you need to use it now or a little bit later on. So no more opportunities to get power-ups because we are into the last lap now. 8.5 kilometres still to go. We've still got to go over Oak Beck Stone Bridge, up that climb over the top, and then up the fearsome slopes of Pot Bank. What's going to happen? But we've got a couple of riders moving clear. We've got 6 riders, in fact, with a slender lead over the rest as we continue down this descent to that little stone bridge.
Not one Next jersey or Canyon jersey in that little group there, as I was hearing Hannah talking about, and Hannah would know as a former racer herself, that taking on sugar, it's critical that you get that on board right about now, because you're going to be feeling that or needing that over this next. So it really is right around an hour of racing until this one is done and dusted, and the pressure is now on. Another surge is coming, so you can see the price that you pay, Matt, when you go for those bonus points. As Christoph Thiem now on the back of the group. Actually, he's slipping right into the sweet spot now, so he'll be just fine. But definitely start loading up the legs with lactic acid at this point, as welcome to downtown Pain City. Matt, you watch the gradient here, and this is where everybody who's in trouble is going to be very, very vulnerable. I'm actually surprised that Next isn't trying to push the pace a little more right now. Back in
I
with
think they're gonna
Takaro
save them.
Ikeda here.
Yeah, I think they're going to save themselves, Dave, for the next climb. We saw them mobbing the front, putting numbers on the front over the climb of Potbank, and that's what this the shape of this group suggests to me, that riders are stealing themselves, saving themselves. We've not seen any riders dropped. Lots of ride-ons, which is great to see. Only 7.1 kilometres to go of this race as we get our first look at Chris Yip. Well, that is a very, very interesting backdrop. That's one of the sponsors there for World Elite Zwifters. Great shot there. Almost what it's got lighting, a lighting situation, a comfy little chair with a throw cushion on this. So Chris Yip looking good. A nice symmetrical illustration of how to get your framing right for the picture-in-picture there. But Yip sat in the middle of that group, but nobody, Dave, willing to attack just yet. But quite clear they are wanting to save themselves for this final brutal climb of Potbank.
Somehow I believe that he's got minty fresh breath as well. He sold me, that's for sure. You know, one of the things, Matt, if you're in this group and we haven't been able to talk about you very much, you've probably done a good job of staying in the wheels, keeping your nose out of the wind, and being as fresh as you possibly could at this point in the race to be there when it becomes old school fury, and that moment is just seconds away. I would feel the next time that the road really pitches up, I have a feeling you're going to see riders making a bid for the win. It's right around 43.3K, but you can see it's 6.5 kilometers of racing to get this one all sorted out. An incredible number of strong men are still left. I think this really is going to come down to who wants it more out here. Will and Hart are going to win this bike race today.
It certainly is. Well, this is the first time we've really seen it back off a little bit. Still putting out pretty decent numbers, but you can just see Nick Hurd there from Cryo RDT. Only 2.3 watts a kilo, just using this slight downhill section before that series of gentle meandering turns and then the climb of Potbank. They know what's going to happen. They're going to hit that in about 1,200 meters time now, and they know the damage that can be caused. And the team with the most number in this front group is the team leading the rankings so far. Leading this league, it's Next Esports, powered by Enshored. Every single rider is there. Thrall, Hoog, Barnes, Bruce and Duffy. They've got strength in depth, but also a lot of riders in the mix there for Movistar E-Team as well. They've got around 3 or 4 riders in that front group, and Canyon Esports as well. They have 4 in this front group too. They are all the main teams. So from a numbers perspective, tonight is anybody's race.
Yeah, and Matt, I think as we look at the points table, as we're in with Adrian Villiers right now, I don't think that either Next or Canyon have made a huge effort. There were not that many points to begin with out there, and the teams that have been gobbling them up, it's been squads like Zwift Warriors, World Elite Zwifters, and certainly Rose Beast Mode. But the 2 biggest teams, the top teams in the league right now, it's almost been a stalemate up to this point. Yes, Next has been very attentive, but so has Canyon here. So, and here we go. Looks like another surge coming from John Verm.
Yep, this is amazing stuff. Barnes goes off the front there. Lots of featherweight power-ups being used. That's the last opportunity to use your power-up. Remember that with Verm, when you're looking at Verm on your screen, rider number 2, please ignore him. There's a little bit of a glitch. He is not actually in this front group at the moment. But Barnes is the rider on the front, pressing on 9.7 watts a kilo, 167 beats a minute, well into his threshold. So you can just see the 5 riders in those green jerseys of Next Esports looking very, very strong indeed, but nobody has managed to go clear as another featherweight power-up has been used just over the top of this climb, but not the attack that I expected here, Dave. 4.8 kilometers to go as the road continues to rise. 6%. No real descent after the really savage steep slopes. Not a lot of opportunity to get any sort of recovery for another 500 or 600 meters. And this group starting to thin out now. Couple of riders off the back now as well.
What a standoff this has turned into. And Jan Steinman has said enough is enough. And does he catch them sleeping, Matt? This is one of those moments here where you get a couple of dogs fighting for a bone. And it's Tugels attacking over the front. Well, we anticipated you'd hear this name again. Leonard Tugels goes all in here late in the race, well inside of 5K to go. So the Belgian Tugels, irrepressible, and the BZR rider is going to lead this one. Lionel Viassen, another Belgian, but a different team for Canyon there. And then the Danish rider, Michael Knudsen, coming forward. They've talked about Knudsen's form getting better. Let's see if he can prove it here today. This is the proving grounds in Yorkshire. All right, Matt, we're officially there. The business end of this bike race has arrived.
It certainly has, Dave. 4.1 kilometres to go, and Turgles is out in front. He saved himself. He showed his hand on the opening couple of laps, backed off a little bit on lap 3, and on lap 4 has gone for broke. He's gone for glory. Vujasan is the rider trying to get across the gap. So 2 Belgians leading the race. There is Vujasan riding for Canyon Esports, desperately trying to claw back his fellow countryman. 1.7 seconds is the lead for the solitary Belgian out in front. Look at Vujasan. I tell you what, he looks very, very composed here as the road starts to flatten ever so slightly. Steinman comes across the gap. And again, Turgel still out in front, kicking out 6.3 watts a kilo. There's probably around 5 minutes left of racing. Can he hold on in front? Look at the face of this man. 6 watts a kilo out of the saddle once more.
Leonard Tugels comes with bona fides. He is a professional continental rider in real life. Man's an absolute monster. You cannot afford to play around with him, and I certainly know that they're not, although the gap is now going up to 3 seconds back to the chase. So that's going to be James Barnes leading that chase. The fact that Barnes is leading the chase right now, Matt, has me wondering if maybe he's trying to set up one of his teammates, maybe Thomas Thrall. These are the big names, and I tell you what, to win out of this group is going to be a big boost in confidence for any rider here, as this is an absolute Donnybrook going inside at 3K to go, and Leonard Tugels, Matt, is adding to his advantage. He's putting more coal on the fire right now.
He certainly has. Look at that, 7 watts a kilo, holding steady between 450 and 500 watts as the road rears up again. He's actually on the slopes of this climb. The bunch, or the remnants of the bunch, there's only about 37 riders left, but it is Barnes knows that Turgles is dangerous. 7.5 seconds for the Belgian, but Barnes accelerates to the front. Vidal Mel from Movistar also moving up. Talbot there for Team Sarah. Glednis also from Callas in the black and red. But the man trying to shut the gap now for Movistar is Vidal Mel. He knows this Belgian rider is dangerous, but Turgles still holding a 6-second lead as the gradient kicks up just over the top of this climb to 9%. Dave, 2.3 goes to go. And it's Pim van Diemen, in fact, the rider from the Netherlands, another lowlander trying to bridge across to the gap in the dying stages of this race. And there is the picture-in-picture of the rider from the Netherlands. Can he get across the gap?
This is the most intense hour of racing that we've seen in the history of the CRL, and it all comes down to this. It really looks like it's every man for himself. If you are the Next Enshored team or Canyon, it's all hands on deck right now, as that's going to be World Elite Zwifters and Ariel Savori out of Argentina. He's had his best ride in CRL history, and man, would he like to cap it off with a win, and it would be our first ever winner from the continent of South America. But James Barnes remains omnipresent all over the front. You wonder how long. So Tugels now, Matt, dropping down into a super tuck. The gradient needed to be over 3%. He had to stop pedaling, which that certainly wouldn't be a problem, and be going over 58 kilometers per hour. He's also now going to get back on the gas here. Leonard Tugels has bet in the bank. He's got the money, and now he's in a getaway car with 1.5K until he's in the hideout and safe with a win.
Well, there it is. He's still in that aero tugging. Turgles is clear. It is Zavori who's now joined forces, just chasing one. There is the rest of the pack, absorbing those 2 chasers who still have to pass under the Flamme Rouge. Turgles still kicking at 11 watts a kilo. Where is this man finding the power? This is absolutely sensational stuff. Turgles, another micro aero tug. 1K to go for the Belgian.
We used to call this Harrogate. It is now downtown Payne City. This man is going to go incredibly deep. He's already scraping the bottom of the barrel. He gets another super tuck. A tiny, oh boy, that was right on the line. And Tugels now goes back to the whip as this man is going to absolutely empty the tank. He's got about 700 meters until he's going to have the biggest win of his career. Matt, he's done this before. He's done it in Zwift community, but that level is not like what we have here. As a world-class field is bearing down on Leonard Tugels, but I really believe the Belgian can do it. Matt Stevens, back to you for one of our most exciting finishes in CRL history.
298 metres to go. Look at the face of the Belgian. The gap is coming down. Barnes, Tolbert, Knudsen are chasing, but the Belgian has done it. He's held on for victory. Fortune favours the brave, and the bravest man today was Leonard Turgels, the 28-year-old from Belgium, from BZR Sports Solid. Detonated the field, took a risk, and it paid off. Look at the delight writ large on his face. Ventilation to spare to the right-hand side. It's absolutely wonderful win. That was very, very special indeed. But look at the pain that it caused him. But you know what? That pain, very shortly, Dave, is going to turn into real sweetness. So, Dave, we are going to see a replay of what was absolutely sensational stuff. He's not dominated the racing, but he's been one of the big protagonists so far. And that was arguably the most deserved win, just because of the way that he's conducted himself over the last few weeks. That was nothing short of sensational.
And Matt, always remembering that this is a team sport. These performances stand out. This is what heart is. You can't look inside a man and see what his ambition is, but we knew that Leonard Tugels had this one in him, and he delivers today. But Next Enshored and Canyon, when you take a look at that, I think Next Enshored got the better of them out there today, Matt, again, as they put 4 into our top 10.
Well, there we go. Tugels crosses the line. And there is the bunch just behind. Absolutely sensational stuff. It was Thrall, in fact, who took second place. We will get the results in just a few moments' time for you. But that was breathtaking stuff. And here it is. Leonard Tugels takes the win for BZR Sports Solid. Second place there for the Canadian Thomas Thrall of Next Insured. Fabian Diova, great ride by him there for Deepak Elite. Then we have Knudsen, Verum, Barnes, Vidal Mel of Movistar, the first home for the Spanish team. Mateus de Roos makes it 2 in the top 10 for the Belgian team. Brian Duffy Jr. there is 9th. 10th place for Daniel Gould of Movistar. Dave, it's been a pleasure commentating with you as ever. But for now, well, I need to lie down. Back to the studio with Hannah and Dan.
Thanks very much, Matt. Yes, Dave Towell correctly predicting at the start of the men's race that we would have a solo victor. Annoyed about that because for a long time, Hannah, it looked like we were going to have a group of about 40 riders contesting the finish there. But how strong was Leonard Tugels there towards the end? I mean, the heart rate was enough, 190 beats per minute, 6 watts per kilo, very constantly, up back towards 11 towards the end after that effort.
That was just incredible. I mean, had you on the edge of your seat, was he going to manage it? Was he not? He was taking every opportunity possible to get into the super tuck, to try and get those micro rests, and then straight away an acceleration back on the gas, holding that gap from the chasing group behind. That was really unbelievable effort there from Tugels.
And as ever, they were coming back very fast in those closing few hundred metres. At what point do you think Leonard thought, I've got this?
I think not far from the finish, probably only 200 metres out, because you could see he kept just taking a look to his right-hand side, and it was almost like he was watching perhaps the live stream, the screen, just trying to get a little look at where everyone else was. Or it was just incredible. I mean, to hold on as well and not panic either, just try and get as much of your effort you possibly can out of yourself without going too deep that you have nothing quite left, but make sure you finish with your tank completely empty.
And he is one of the riders who's got a lot of experience in pro road races. He's been on the fringes in some slightly smaller teams for the last 4 or 5 years, races a lot in Belgium, his home country, etc. But you do get a really mismatch of riders, don't you, doing the Zwift ZRL Racing League. Those that have experience on the road as pros, but also those that are only doing the ZRL.
You certainly do. There's a huge mix of different types of riders. You look at, Tugels for one, Lionel Viarsin, who was going for the Zwift Academy Pro contract last year. Mike Cumming, one of those riders who's been in the continental scene in the UK for a long time. Now, racing predominantly on Zwift and in the ZRL. So there's a huge difference of different types of riders, experience, how many years they've been doing it for.
Yeah, some of them have been doing it a lot of time already at this point. We've actually got quite a lot to discuss because I only had 50 seconds between the two races to talk about the women's. We'll get the day standings in terms of points for the men shortly and also the overall standings. In fact, I think we've got the results from today just coming up on the screen for you right now, if I'm not incorrect. Here they are then, team points. They're the most important ones. Tugels with a fantastic individual win, but this is all about the teams. And Next Esports, They've made it a perfect 4 races from 4. 110 points they picked up on the day. Movistar in second place with 74, just 1 point ahead of BZR Sports Solid, who Turgles rides for, of course. Canyon Esports having to settle for 4th place today. And then down in 5th, we've got the Deepak Elite team. Swedish Zwifters, PO Auto Ceramic Speed, Wahoo Lecole, Team Saris, and Beast Mode presented by Rose, rounding out the top 10. And there you can see the final few teams on the day. So we'll find out shortly how that has affected the overall standings, but of course Next Esports are going to have 80 points from a potential 80. There's no beating Next at the moment, is there?
That is, to have that consistency, that winning streak, and to have so many riders, 3 riders in the top 10 there for Next Esports. I think they could have perhaps panicked when you see that move. Your initial reaction is to see a solo rider and you want to chase it down. It's that inner racer in you, isn't it? But for Next, they just waited and knew that perhaps BZR Sports Solid weren't going to be a threat to the team overall. Let's wait, let's keep as much back as we possibly have. And they know, we've seen over the last few weeks how strong they are in a bunch sprint and how many riders they can put into the top. So for Next Esports, riding to their strengths and not to another team's.
And James Barnes, winner of the last 2 rounds, he rode with a lot of confidence today, didn't he? He was attacking a lot. Was he overconfident?
I think you go with your strengths. Potentially that could have been a huge moment for Next Esports if you sort of, as a rider, you give too much too early on. You don't have that patience to wait. You use everything up, you use your legs, and you consequently you get dropped from the group. And with so much elevation, I mean, it was a risk, wasn't it? It was a risk that they're willing to take in order to succeed. And
it's paid off for them yet again. I think we can now look at how the overall standings look. We know that Next Esports are at the top with the perfect score of 80. Their advantage over Canyon Esports in second is now up to 7 points. Canyon Esports having to settle for 4th today. Movistar with their second place, so their best result of the season so far, are up to 70 points, so 10 off the lead. BZR Sports Solid in 4th with 69, just 1 point behind Movistar. And then rounding out the top 5, it's Team Saris, but quite a big gap. They're 15 points behind 4th place. So it looks like we've got 4 teams fairly well clear of the rest, should I say, with just 2 rounds remaining. I'll be talking about next week's round very shortly indeed. Doesn't look like they're going to be toppled from the top, Next Esports, as things stand, does it?
It doesn't. I mean, that's a huge margin to try and claw back. And even for the podium, there's still that strong battle. But below 4th, from 5th down, it's very much sort of a done deal. There's no one who's going to be able to challenge to come back up the standings. But for Next Esports, they've just got onto this winning streak. They've got this confidence, their tactics, their strategy, their roster that they're putting in each week as well is working, and whatever they're doing, long may it continue and have this exciting racing.
Yeah, their strategy will be different next week, and I'll get onto why a little bit later on. But of course, we've also had the women's race earlier on today. Now, we didn't have time to give you the standings overall in terms of the day, and also the team's classification and the overall classification of the teams, but I understand that we have got most of that for you now. So first up, let's take a look at the standings overall. So Heino Racing, 2 second places followed by 2 wins, so not quite the perfect score, but they do now have 78 points. That puts them 5 clear of the Aeonian race team, who took 4th place today. Only 1 rider in the top 10 for them, so slightly disappointing. 1 point behind them is the Canyon Esports team on 72 points, and then 5 points behind that, 2024, who of course had a brilliant ride with Korchinski yet again today. Let's talk about the women's race. So I didn't get the opportunity to do that with you before, Hannah. Korchinski threw everything at that today, but had to settle for 3rd in the end.
She did, and she was patient in the middle of the race where she really could have split things up. I mean, from the first lap, we saw a considerable amount of riders start to be tailed off, and this was the moment on that final lap on the pot bank course and on these steep gradients where she knew time and time again that riders were really struggling, and this was the moment where Cecilia Hansen of Heino in the red jersey, she was trying to get back on terms with Kristen Korchinski. She was trying to claw her way back, and Beth McKeever, in sort of stark contrast, in the saddle, she was keeping this nice tempo, this nice getting into that rhythm, getting onto terms with Cecilia Hansen and Korchinski. She just knew that if she kept making these huge accelerations, these huge explosive moves that she could really, you know, tail everyone else off, and she did. There was only 3 riders in the lead going into that finale.
It was incredible how Korchinski just kept going, recovering for a very short period of time, and then making another attack. But as I said, she did have to settle for 3rd place on the day. The individual winner was Beth McKeever in the end. I mean, she just got that sprint totally right in the last couple of 100 metres. And very well done to her and her Movistar team as well. Real shame that they didn't start last week's round, because it's left them in 9th place overall.
Well,
now.
when you look at the team standings from tonight, they were 2nd overall, picking up the 19 points. But in the actual overall series standings, it's not really done anything to elevate them up towards the top.
Yeah, there are the points from today's round. So Heino Racing with another dominant display, 127 points. That puts them, what, 39 points clear, or no, 41 points clear, isn't it, of the Movistar E team. Canyon Esports in 3rd on the day, Aeonian on 4th, 2024 in 5th. So we're starting to see the same teams at the top of the standings each and every round. 6th place for Beast Mode there. One of the things that I noted towards the start, and I've written it down here, Hannah, is that Elisa Haag of Beast Mode hit 207 heart rate on the 1st lap.
It's just outstanding, isn't it? It just gives you some indication how hard that start was. And I said to Matt in the commentary, if you didn't have a good warm-up beforehand, you had no chance to be able to stay in with the ferocious pace that was set on the first Queen of the Mountain. I mean, 207 beats per minute. It's incredible. And if you go so deep into the red, there's no coming back from that.
No, and you don't want to go into the red off your own accord, which is kind of what Mary Wilkinson did, because she used the anvil on a descent, but slightly too late. And it lasts, as Matt kept saying, for 30 seconds, which meant she took 50 kilograms of extra weight onto the next climb. Yeah,
onto those the lower slopes of that next climb. And, she did begin to pay the price, and it could have been an awful lot worse. You see the road starts to ascend, and she still has that anvil power up. She was dropping like a stone. She went straight through the group, out the back, and had a long chase.
Well, not a surprise of a 50 extra kilos.
Well, yeah, but then you had a long chase, and that's an awful lot of energy that you certainly want to conserve. And in the first lap, she certainly didn't do it again, though.
No, not something I think you're going to do twice in terms of making that mistake. But mightily impressive that she clung onto that lead group, especially as she was 2nd, as we mentioned earlier, at the British National Hill Climb Championships just 24 hours ago. Right, we'll move on now, and as many of you know, GCN is also competing in this series of the ZRL, albeit at a much lower level, a much lower level, I think it's safe to say. They're in the Community League, and the GCN All-Stars competed again last Tuesday, so it's time to check in with them now to see just how badly they did.
Right, I confess, tonight is one of those nights where, were it not for the fact that I have something concrete in the diary and a bunch of mates waiting on me and expecting me to show up, I might have just elected to sit on the sofa. But generally speaking, it's always worth getting on the bike and pushing through, so fingers crossed. But for maximum motivation, I brought out the big guns. Got Castelli's rudest, longest socks on for extra motivation, and obviously my white DMTs, because well, when would you not wear white shoes? Anyway, wish me luck. Oh, I think, despite the morale socks, I think maybe I was just a bit tired. I really struggled with the top end, so didn't make the split on the first lap, but then my group from 30 to 50 was plenty hard enough tonight, thank you very much. Florian Chabal from GCN Racing did a stormer. That was fantastic to see. Oh, and Toby broke his Zwift duck. That was his first time out, so fair play to him too. I'm not sure it was a great outing for Team GCN in the results though, so we'll see. I need to get some coaching. James Barnes, if you're watching, please, I would like some help. Thank you very much.
First Zwift race for me, Zwift Racing League. I played 60 or so. Was quite hard, but was nice to race with the other guys, and yeah, looking forward for the races in the future.
Hey guys, always a pleasure to take a shower with Simon. It was a good ride. Thanks mate for helping me a bit. Again, you were the strongest, but always good to ride together. We had fun, and see you soon on Zwift. Cheers. I need a real shower now.
Promotion to the Premier Division is not looking particularly likely right now, I think it's safe to say. But if we look on the bright side, the good thing about hitting rock bottom is that it can only get better. Right, let's now turn our attention to next week and round 5 of the ZRL Premier Division. It's the penultimate of the series. It's on the Greatest London Flat route. There's a lead-in of 7.4 kilometres and then one full lap of 23.6 kilometres, so a total distance of 31 k's. No power-ups are available next week, and that's a very good reason. It's a team time trial. So more important than ever that each team works cohesively together on this one. Make mistakes on this event and it can all go painfully and horribly wrong. As with in real life team time trials, it's simply a case of getting from the start to the finish as quickly as you possibly can as a team. And it's the third rider from each team when they cross the line that will stop the clock. So how do you get it right? Well, Hannah spoke to Lionel Villasin of Canyon Esports to see if she could extract some of his secrets to success in the Zwift team time trials.
What is it that makes Canyon so good at this discipline in team time trialing?
Our team, we all have like the same morphology, I would say. Like we all have like 70 kilo, and then we all can push really big watts. So when the TTT is flat like London, always treat us better than some teams. They have more light riders. But I think the main point is having Ollie Jones. Ollie is super strong and he's always yelling at us, screaming at us, harass us. But the tactic is that we try to hold us as the power as long as we can, try not to lose someone. This is the most difficult part, but we have like a team where maybe Ollie and I have better power for such event, but Spencer is really strong. Gary is always ready to work hard. London is gonna be a new pack dynamics. Apparently, we got the news today, so yeah, you need to see what is different. And yeah, the secret is really easy. It's just practice, and find a way to deal with the pain.
So for any team, whether that be in the community division or those wanting to try and improve their team time trialing, do you have 3 tips to give to us that you've learned from Canyon Esports?
Try to train for it, so a lot of crisscross training, going over the threshold and recover at maybe sweet spot. It's something different than what you used to do in a race when it's more like up and down, and then all power. And communication is key also. You need to be able to push hard, but not too hard that you're gonna die or you're gonna blow up. So you need to communicate to your guys and say, okay, maybe it's too hard for me this time, I have to skip this turn or do a earlier turn, a smaller one, a shorter one. And the last one, know the course, know where you have to push. It's different when you put like 400 watts at some place in the course or 400 watts at another places. So recon is key, so you need to study the game and the course.
Only one team time trial in the ZRL this year. Do you think that will make a difference, only having one?
Yeah, I think so, because in the past you had to. It's more or less we did TTT every week, even in training or for racing. So this time with only one, you tend to forget about it. But it's gonna be a main event. You know, it can change everything in the ranking. So. Yeah, you need to practice that, and I saw different teams yesterday practicing on WTRL TTT, so yeah, they take it seriously, so we have to take it seriously too.
Thank you very much, Lionel, and I hope the GCN All-Stars were watching those tips ready for their team time trial. You heard him mention Ollie Jones, his teammate there. He was actually the winner of the first ever Men's Zwift Academy back in 2017, and the finals of this year's Zwift Academy are coming up in just a few weeks' time. And the good news is that we at GCN are going to go over to Mallorca to film them, and you'll be able to watch a series of videos in December where we'll ultimately crown the 2 champions who will get a contract with Canyon SRAM and also with Alpecin Fenix, so make sure you don't miss them. Right, team time trial, very different event, Hannah, but will we see different teams at the top of the table by the end of it?
Well, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult in the men's with that large gap between Next Esports and Canyon Esports, but in the women's, with the close gap and the close proximity of the teams at the moment, it is all to play for. Heino have been the out-and-out dominant team in all of the team time trials across all 3 seasons so far, so they go into it as clear favourite. They just have this discipline really nailed on, but don't discount Aeonian coming into this. They've gone from strength to strength. Movistar, perhaps they're not going to challenge in the series overall, but for a team victory, Steph Clutterbuck coming into incredible form, completing an Ironman last week in Portugal. Beth McKeever, as we saw this week. It's going to be a close, exciting one. And with only one, no one knows where we're going to go into this.
No, and so important to look after each other as a team as well. Yeah. You don't want show-offs, do you, in a team time trial, trying to prove how strong you are. You've got to stick together and have at least those 3 riders as you cross the finish line.
You certainly do. You don't want any egos. You want to be working as a team. If you're starting to find that weak link, don't be afraid, don't be too proud to say, I'm going to sit on and miss a turn here. I just need to recover, and then I can give it my all and start to contribute to the pace again. Yeah,
going to be very interesting to see how the different teams tackle it. But we'll wrap things up for this evening. Thank you everyone for your company tonight. Thank you to you, Hannah, for your expert insight yet again. Si is going to be back with Hannah at the same time in the same place next Monday, but it's goodbye from me for now.